Archaeologists just discovered a Roman gladiator's treasure, and it shocked the world. A set of human remains lay beside a non-human creature for 8,400 years. A tomb containing as many as 17 mysterious skeletons was buried at the bottom of a pond, hidden from the world and completely unknown to anyone. A nearly 5,000-year-old statue of a goddess was discovered only because an archaeologist accidentally noticed a strange face emerging from the ground. A mysterious treasure belonging to a gladiator appeared in the most unexpected way imaginable. All of these are secrets that the past is still trying to tell us. Yet even after decades, and in some cases thousands of years, scientists still have not been able to find the final answers. So what really happened to the people who lived thousands of years ago? Who were they? Why were some of them buried in rituals so strange they are almost unbelievable? And what messages are the ancient artifacts found beside them trying to send us from the distant past? Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Ancient History Channel. In today's journey, we will explore some of the most mysterious archaeological discoveries that have ever shocked researchers. From ancient tombs thousands of years old, to skeletons that raise countless unanswered questions, and even treasures believed to have rewritten the history of entire civilizations. Each story holds fascinating secrets waiting for us to uncover one by one. Are you ready to explore with me? If so, make sure to watch until the very end, because by the end of this journey, you may realize that history is far more mysterious than anything we were ever taught. Now, without keeping you waiting any longer, let's begin our first discovery right away. 80 headless skeletons beneath the ground in England reveal the terrifying secrets of an ancient Roman arena. You know, history is mysterious, yet incredibly fascinating. There are secrets that seem like they were lost forever in the flow of time. But sometimes, all it takes is a single shovel striking the ground for an entire world, forgotten for thousands of years, to suddenly reappear before our eyes. A striking example of this happened in 2004, when workers and archaeologists began surveying land beneath the garden of an 18th-century mansion in the city of York, in northern England. At the time, everything seemed completely ordinary. No one imagined that beneath this quiet layer of soil lay one of the most shocking archaeological discoveries in British history. At first, it was only a few fragments of human bone mixed in with soil and stones. But the deeper they dug, the more the archaeologists sensed something unusual. Skeleton after skeleton began to emerge. The number kept increasing until they had uncovered a total of 80 ancient human skeletons buried closely together underground. Just imagine, what could have caused 80 people to end up in the same place like this? That question took scientists years of research to answer. It wasn't until the remains were taken into the laboratory that a series of hidden truths began to surface. The results showed that these were all young men with exceptionally strong, powerful physiques. Many of them were significantly taller than the average for that historical period. Their bones revealed signs of intense physical training over many years. But the most horrifying detail was the cause of death. Many of the skeletons bore deep, violent cut marks. Some individuals had been pierced by sharp weapons. Several skulls showed severe trauma from fatal blows. Even more disturbingly, many of the bodies had been decapitated before burial. Based on this evidence, archaeologists initially believed these might have been Roman soldiers executed during a political purge nearly 2,000 years ago. This theory made sense, as Britain was under the rule of the Roman Empire at the time. However, as the investigation continued, the story became even more astonishing. Researchers from the York Archaeological Trust discovered signs suggesting these men were not ordinary soldiers at all. Their skeletal structure indicated specialized training. In particular, many of the bones showed one arm significantly more developed than the other, a common trait among individuals who regularly wield heavy weapons. Then came a shocking discovery. On the skeleton of one man, scientists found a large bite mark from a predator. The injury did not resemble anything seen in typical battlefield wounds. After analysis, experts suggested it may have been caused by a lion, tiger, or bear. Can you imagine how strange that is? How could a man living in northern England 2,000 years ago have been attacked by a lion or tiger? There is only one reasonable explanation. That man must have fought in a Roman arena. And from increasingly clear evidence, researchers concluded that these 80 skeletons likely belonged to professional gladiators. They were brought from various parts of the Roman Empire, including the Mediterranean region and even distant parts of Africa, to Britain to fight in deadly spectacles for entertainment. In massive arenas, before the roar of thousands of spectators, they fought with swords, spears, and shields. Many were severely injured. Many never had the chance to leave the arena alive. And for those who lost, a final blow to the head could mark the end of their life. Today, historians believe that the burial site discovered in York may be the best preserved gladiator cemetery ever found in the world. It is not just a burial ground, it is a gateway into a blood-soaked chapter of Roman history, where human beings lived, fought, and died for one of the most brutal forms of entertainment in history. When you think about battles like these, does it send a chill down your spine? As for me, I have to admit, I'm sitting here with goosebumps all over. 3 skeletons, curled up for 7,500 years, inside a cave, deep in the forests of Vietnam. Deep within the dense primeval forests of Cuc Phuong, one of Vietnam's most famous ancient woodlands, where sunlight often has to weave through multiple layers of towering trees just to reach the forest floor, there is a small cave that has quietly preserved a secret for thousands of years. This is not a treasure of gold or silver, nor is it the kind of sparkling archaeological artifact often told in stories. What lies inside this cave are 3 ancient human skeletons, resting in silence since a time when humans still survived through hunting and gathering. What is truly strange is that all 3 individuals were buried in the same posture. They were not laid flat like in modern burials, but instead curled up, as if they were falling into a deep sleep. Even today, the reason behind this unusual burial position continues to intrigue many researchers. The story begins in 1966, when Vietnamese archaeologists discovered a remarkable cave deep within Cuc Phuong National Park in Ngo Quan District, Ninh Binh Province. This cave was later named Ancient Man Cave. About 2.5 miles from the forest entrance, the cave sits hidden among limestone mountains and deep green jungle. At first glance, few would imagine that this place was once home to people who lived as far back as 7,500 years ago. After the discovery, the Vietnam Institute of Archaeology, in cooperation with Cuc Phuong National Park and German experts, carried out a large-scale excavation. Initially, the goal was simply to understand how ancient humans lived in this area. But as they dug deeper, the discoveries became increasingly astonishing. The cave floor was covered with traces of prehistoric life. Archaeologists found countless freshwater snail shells and land snail remains, along with bones and teeth from animals such as gibbons, monkeys, bears, wild pigs, deer, and other wildlife. These findings show that ancient people once hunted and gathered food directly in the Cuc Phuong forest region. In addition, many stone tools such as axes and cutting instruments were discovered, along with a nearly 6.5-foot thick layer of charcoal, clear evidence that fire had burned here continuously across many generations. But then, a surprising discovery completely changed the significance of the excavation. Hidden beneath the ancient soil were 3 graves dating back approximately 7,500 years. Inside them were human skeletons that had fossilized but were still relatively well preserved. The graves were located at depths ranging from about 1.3 feet to 4.6 feet. Do you know what astonished the experts the most? It was the burial position of the ancient people. All 3 skeletons were placed in a tightly curled or squatting posture. Just imagine, why would they have been buried like this? Researchers believe that prehistoric people may have thought death was not an end, but a return to the origin of life. This curled position closely resembles a fetus in the womb, possibly symbolizing a kind of rebirth that we still cannot fully understand today. Beyond that, the structure of the graves also suggests that early spiritual beliefs had already begun to form. Around the skeletons, carefully arranged stone slabs were found. The base of the graves was lined with gravel. Some even contained layers of red ochre, a material commonly associated with ancient rituals around the world. Even more interestingly, most of the graves were located near ancient hearths. This detail has led many experts to believe that prehistoric people may have wanted the dead to remain close to the living community even after death. The fire that once warmed them in life may have continued to accompany them into the afterlife. According to archaeologists, this is the earliest known burial structure discovered within the Hoa Binh Hien cultural tradition. As such, this discovery holds great significance, as it sheds light on some of the earliest belief systems of prehistoric communities in Vietnam. Today, 2 of the 3 skeletons are preserved at the Vietnam National Museum of Archaeology, while the third is displayed at the Cuc Phung Museum. They remain there as silent witnesses of a lost era, telling the story of people who once lived deep in the forests, lit fires inside stone caves, and placed their faith in the afterlife thousands of years ago. If you ever have the chance to visit Vietnam, make sure to stop by these museums to see these ancient skeletons with your own eyes. 2. 2,300-year-old headless statues found in an ancient Greek tomb. Do you believe that sometimes one of history's greatest mysteries is not what we find, but what has gone missing? Because there are artifacts that have survived more than 2,300 years of reign, war, and the destruction of time, yet the most puzzling detail for archaeologists is surprisingly simple. Where did their heads go? Yes, this is the story of 2 headless statues buried beneath the ground in Greece that we are about to explore. The story begins on January 24th in the town of Paionia, located east of Athens, Greece's capital. During preparations for the construction of a new town hall, archaeologists carried out a routine survey excavation. At first, it was considered a standard investigation, simply to check whether the area contained any historical remains. However, to everyone's surprise, just beneath the seemingly ordinary soil lay precious traces of a civilization that existed thousands of years ago. As the first layers of soil were removed, researchers began discovering fragments of white marble scattered underground. After further inspection, they realized these were not ordinary stones. After many careful hours of work, 2 ancient statues made of white marble slowly emerged, but strikingly, both statues were missing their heads. Despite this, the statues still preserved an astonishing level of intricate detail. Even without their heads, the bodies clearly demonstrate the masterful craftsmanship of ancient Greek sculptors. According to experts, the 2 statues were once part of a white marble funerary monument built in the 4th century BC. That means they are approximately 2,300 years old. At that time, such monuments were commonly erected to mark the graves of the deceased and to honor their memory. One of the statues depicts a woman seated on an elaborately carved chair. Although her face is gone, her dignified sitting posture still conveys nobility and authority. The other statue represents a maid standing beside her. The presence of these 2 figures suggests that this burial site may have belonged to a socially prominent family in ancient Greek society. This type of funerary monument is not entirely new to archaeologists in Greece. Similar discoveries have previously been made in Agia Paraskevi, Markopoulou Mesogeas, and especially the famous Kerameikos Cemetery in Athens. However, each new discovery adds another piece to the puzzle, helping researchers better understand the life, beliefs, and burial customs of ancient Greeks. Yet among all these historical values, one question remains unanswered. Why were both statues decapitated? To this day, the Greek Ministry of Culture and Sports has not provided an official explanation. Were the heads destroyed by war, natural disasters, or ancient artifact looters? Or were they separated from the bodies during some unknown event thousands of years ago? No one knows for sure. Researchers only confirm that the entire monument had already been broken into multiple pieces before its discovery. It was originally created as a symbolic representation of the deceased rather than an exact portrait of real individuals. Even so, its historical and artistic value remains immense. Today, the 2 headless marble statues have been transferred to the Braun Archaeological Museum for long-term preservation and study. There, experts continue searching for new clues in hopes of uncovering the true story behind these ancient works of art. And perhaps in the future, an unexpected discovery may help complete the missing pieces of this historical puzzle. Because archaeology is always like that. Every artifact unearthed not only tells a story of the past, but also opens new mysteries that keep humanity endlessly curious and fascinated. The mysterious tomb, containing the unexpected treasure of a female Roman gladiator in Britain. Have you ever wondered what it would be like if archaeologists one day dug deep into the ground and discovered an ancient tomb filled with secrets buried for nearly 2,000 years, and just how strange the story behind it might be? It sounds like a difficult question to answer, doesn't it? If so, then let's travel together to Credon Hill in Herefordshire, England, to find the answer. Because it is here that a stunning archaeological discovery has forced researchers to rethink everything they thought they knew about women in the Roman period, while also helping us answer that very question. During an excavation for the Yazor Brook Flood Defense Project, aimed at protecting local communities and the regional economy, archaeologists unexpectedly uncovered a special grave near the site of the Royal Air Force Command area. And from the very first traces emerging beneath the ancient soil, they realized this was not an ordinary burial. Inside the grave lay the remains of an individual with an exceptionally strong and muscular body. At first, based on the legs, bones, and muscle attachment points, experts believed this might have been a male warrior who had endured extremely intense physical activity. However, upon closer examination, especially after analyzing the pelvis, skull, and biological indicators, they reached a completely unexpected conclusion. The person buried there was a woman. This discovery immediately shocked archaeologists. According to experts, this woman may have been a female warrior or even a female gladiator who lived during the Roman occupation of Britain around the 2nd to 3rd century AD. If this hypothesis is correct, it would represent an extremely rare piece of evidence about the role of women in combat activities in the ancient world. But the mystery did not end there. Although the wooden coffin had completely decayed after thousands of years underground, archaeologists still found nails, large hinges, and metal bands placed around the burial site. All of this suggests that the woman was once placed in a high-status coffin made of expensive wood. These metal bands may have been used to reinforce the coffin or simply served a decorative purpose, reflecting the special status of the deceased. However, what continued to puzzle researchers was the striking contrast between the woman's life and her final resting place. The marks on her bones suggest she lived a life of hard labor or intense physical struggle, yet her grave suggests someone who was respected or held a significant position in society. Why would someone who lived such a difficult life be buried so elaborately? That question remains unanswered, and the discoveries did not stop there. As excavation continued, archaeologists uncovered even more fascinating details. First, beneath the grave, they found ceramic vessels along with beef remains placed as grave goods. According to researchers, these offerings were commonly used in ancient rituals, symbolizing respect for the deceased. Second, the location of the grave itself was unusual. Instead of being placed in a typical Roman cemetery on the outskirts of a settlement, this burial was found in a suburban area, separated from the standard funerary practices of the time. This only deepened the mystery surrounding the woman's identity. And it wasn't just this extraordinary grave. The excavation site also contained remarkably well-preserved Roman structures, including ancient buildings, courtyards, and waste pits filled with countless clues about life nearly 2 millennia ago. But the biggest questions still remain. Was this mysterious woman truly a gladiator who fought in life-or-death battles? Or was she a unique warrior who achieved remarkable feats that earned her an unusual burial? Perhaps scientists will need much more time to fully decode her story. Until then, all we can do is wait and see. The 5,000-year-old treasure that shook the history of China. Everything began in the 1980s, when Chinese archaeologists repeatedly discovered ancient traces in the Neo-Heliang area. Locals had long passed down rumors that ancient artifacts often appeared in burial sites there. Some people even reported finding valuable jade objects. These stories quickly attracted the attention of archaeologists. In April 1981, a cultural heritage survey team from Liaoning province visited the area for a preliminary investigation. However, it was not until 1983 that a large-scale excavation was officially launched, led by well-known archaeologists Sun Shudao and Guo Dashun. Believing that the site might hide a major historical secret, they brought in experts and began extensive digging. But reality was far less promising than expected. Day after day, the archaeologists worked under the sun and wind, carefully digging layer by layer and examining every small trace, but almost nothing of value was found. Disappointment slowly appeared on everyone's faces. After many exhausting days, the entire team was nearly depleted of energy. Then, at the most unexpected moment, history opened a new door. One evening after finishing work, as the team was packing up to rest, a staff member stepped aside into a quiet corner. While standing in the empty ground, he suddenly noticed a strange object protruding from the soil. Under the dim light, it looked like a human face staring up at him from deep underground. A chill ran down his spine, and he immediately leaned in for a closer look. The more he observed, the more unusual it seemed. Using his hands, he gently brushed away the surrounding soil. And then, a ceramic human head slowly emerged before his eyes. Shocked and excited, he immediately called his colleagues over. At that moment, no one could have imagined that this accidental discovery would become one of the most important archaeological findings in China of the 20th century. After expanding the excavation area, experts quickly confirmed that the ceramic head was actually part of a Neo-Heliang goddess statue. Further exploration nearby led to the discovery of an entire goddess temple dating back nearly 5,000 years. Once the news was announced, the international archaeological community was stunned. According to those who directly participated in the excavation, the moment the goddess's face gradually emerged from the ancient soil was unforgettable. Everyone held their breath. No one spoke a word. In the silence, only the soft brushing of tools against the soil could be heard. They knew they were witnessing a historic moment. After restoration, the goddess statue revealed a majestic and mysterious appearance. It stands about 8.8 inches tall and 8.3 inches wide. The prominent cheekbones, slightly upturned nose, wide lips, and especially the sharp, piercing eyes create a sense of both sacredness and mystery. A ring-like ornament is placed on the forehead, while the eyes are inlaid with round jade pieces about 0.9 inches in diameter, demonstrating the astonishing craftsmanship of ancient artisans. Today, the Neo-Heliang goddess statue is preserved at the Liaoning Provincial Institute of Archaeology. It is considered the oldest ceramic goddess statue ever unearthed in China. Its value is so significant that it has been designated a national treasure and is prohibited from being taken abroad for exhibition. More importantly, this discovery has helped researchers gain a deeper understanding of the Hongshan culture, a Neolithic civilization that emerged thousands of years ago in northeastern China. Hongshan sites stretch from Inner Mongolia to Liaoning and are famous for ancient jade artifacts, C-shaped dragon figures, and highly refined animal and human sculptures. What astonishes scientists is that this culture not only mastered jade craftsmanship far beyond previous expectations, but also left early traces of feng shui thinking and the concept of round heaven and square earth. The tools and techniques used by the Hongshan people to create such exquisite artifacts remain an unsolved mystery to this day. And all of this began with a completely accidental discovery by a field worker in the afternoon of 1983. You see, history is not always shaped by carefully laid plans. Sometimes it appears in the most unexpected moments. That is why it is no exaggeration to say that every archaeological excavation is like a dialogue with the past, where even the smallest trace can change everything we thought we knew about human history. The 2,000-year-old tomb containing intact grain bags that astonished archaeologists. Have you ever wondered what would remain if we buried a bag of grain underground today and dug it up 2,000 years later? Most of us would probably assume that everything would have long disappeared before any future generation could ever see it. But an archaeological discovery in China has shocked scientists because materials that should have completely decayed have survived for more than 2 millennia, as if time itself had forgotten them. The story began on May 7, 2021, in Xi'an, Shanxi Province, China. During the construction of foundations for a new residential complex in the Huangpu area of Kujiang District, workers unexpectedly discovered traces of ancient structures deep underground. The Shanxi Provincial Institute of Archaeology immediately launched an emergency excavation. What no one expected was that beneath the construction site lay an enormous ancient cemetery. In fact, the excavation had already begun earlier in August 2020, and initial surveys revealed more than 1,000 ancient tombs scattered across elevated terrain, land that ancient people considered an ideal burial location. This area is located about 2.5 miles south of the mausoleum of Emperor Han Xuandi, a well-known emperor of ancient China, and about 0.9 miles from the northern boundary of Duling Town. Most of the tombs date back to the Middle and late Western Han dynasty, with a smaller number from the Tang, Ming, and Qing dynasties. But among these thousands of tombs, one particular burial captured the full attention of archaeologists: Tomb M553. Although it had been looted in ancient times and many valuable burial objects were taken, M553 still preserved secrets that stunned researchers. Based on its scale and structure, scholars believe the tomb's owner was likely a noble or high-ranking official during the Han Dynasty. The tomb was built in a brick-chambered vaulted structure carved deep into the ground, measuring about 55 feet long, over 13 feet wide, and around 30 feet deep. It is considered the largest Han Dynasty tomb discovered in this excavation area. Although the top of the tomb had collapsed over time and many jade and ivory burial goods had been removed, the most astonishing discoveries were found in a small chamber on the eastern side. While clearing this chamber, archaeologists uncovered objects rarely seen in Han Dynasty tombs. In addition to ancient pottery and ceramic vessels, they also found woven fabric bags filled with grain. These fabric bags had been buried underground for more than 2,000 years, yet remarkably, their outer shape was still relatively well preserved. Even more surprisingly, the organic materials inside the chamber were arranged in 3 distinct layers. At the deepest level were ceramic pots and ancient porcelain vessels, some still retaining hand-woven lids. Decorative patterns typical of ancient times were still visible on the necks of the jars. Above these artifacts was a mat that had survived in nearly intact condition. In the middle layer of the chamber were cylindrical bundles of grains neatly arranged side by side. Preliminary analysis identified them as millet and hemp seeds. All of the grain was wrapped in woven fabric and braided mats, then tied with red ribbons in the shape of the Chinese character feng. This detail is what most astonished researchers. The material used for the outer braided mats appeared very similar to reeds. However, physical analysis showed that it was not a familiar plant material at all. To this day, its exact composition remains an unsolved mystery. On the outermost layer, there was a large round bag with its opening turned outward. Inside, researchers found traces of a strange brown residue. Archaeologists suspect it may have been food, meat, or a type of soup used as a burial offering, but its exact nature has not yet been confirmed. The biggest challenge for researchers is that most of the organic materials survive only as fragile outer shells. The inner cores have decomposed into extremely delicate powder-like substances. Even slight disturbance or prolonged exposure to air could cause them to disintegrate completely. For this reason, all handling and analysis must be carried out with extreme care. According to Hu Xuanbo, head of the excavation team from the Shanxi Provincial Institute of Archaeology, Han Dynasty tombs previously discovered typically only contained grain stored in ceramic vessels. Finding grain preserved inside woven fabric bags, braided mats, and tied ribbons after more than 2,000 years is an extremely rare phenomenon in this region. Beyond deepening our understanding of ancient Chinese daily life, this discovery also opens new research directions into historical food preservation techniques. Because if scientists can decode the mysterious materials that protected these grain bags for over 2 millennia, we may uncover a secret that modern humanity is still searching for: how to preserve food effectively over extremely long periods of time. The 8,400-year-old skeleton found beside a mysterious companion. You probably already know that today, dogs are considered humanity's most loyal companions. But have you ever wondered how far back that special bond truly goes? 10 years? 20? 100? Or does it stretch all the way back to prehistoric times? And if it did exist in prehistoric times, would ancient humans have been willing to bring their 4-legged companions with them into the afterlife? If you don't yet have your own answer, let's travel back in time to Ljungaviken, in the city of Sölvesborg, Sweden. In 2015, archaeologists discovered a large ancient settlement here, containing a total of 56 different archaeological structures that offered fascinating clues to these questions. Inside the settlement were burial pits, ancient hearths, stone slabs with carved holes used for lighting lamps, and numerous traces of daily life from Stone Age inhabitants. Each layer of soil revealed stories buried for thousands of years. But among these dozens of archaeological features, one grave drew the special attention of researchers. This grave was later determined to be about 8,400 years old. Inside it was the skeleton of a man buried with formal burial rites. At first glance, it appeared similar to many other ancient graves discovered before. However, as archaeologists continued to carefully clean the surrounding soil, they were shocked to find another skeleton beside the man. What stunned everyone was that this skeleton was not human. At first, experts could only tell that it belonged to a fairly large animal. Remarkably, the skeleton was almost perfectly preserved. The joints, skull, and many key bones were still in their original positions after thousands of years. But after detailed analysis, the truth was finally revealed. The creature buried beside the man was actually an ancient dog, not just any other animal. However, this was not a dog breed we know today. According to experts, it belonged to an ancient lineage that has long been extinct. This dog was large, powerful, and had a majestic build that many modern breeds could hardly match. Perhaps 8,400 years ago, when human life was filled with dangers, from wild predators to harsh environmental conditions, such a strong dog was not just a pet. It may have been a hunting companion, a protector of the settlement, and even a cherished member of the owner's family. Archaeologist Ola Magnell of the Blekinge Museum, a member of the research team, stated that this is a completely unique case in Sweden. Before this discovery, scientists had never found a dog skeleton buried in such a special way in Stone Age graves. What is particularly striking is that the burial method shows the animal was treated with great respect. It was not discarded or buried separately, but placed right beside the man in the same grave. This detail has led many experts to believe that the dog was buried with its owner as a valuable grave offering, or even as a companion meant to continue alongside him in the afterlife. This interpretation is further supported by evidence from other graves of the same period in the region, where the deceased were often buried with items of personal significance. Therefore, giving the dog such a prominent place beside its owner suggests it held great importance. Of course, this grave is not the only remarkable find. The entire ancient cemetery at Ljungaviken is considered a rare archaeological treasure. The skeletons and artifacts here are preserved in astonishing condition. This is due to the site's unique geographical history. Thousands of years ago, it lay close to the coastline. Over time, rising sea levels gradually covered the area with thick layers of sand and mud. This natural seal accidentally created a perfect preservation environment, allowing ancient remains to survive almost intact to this day. And perhaps what makes this discovery truly special is not only the 8,400-year age of the grave itself. What truly moves people is the evidence suggesting that the bond between humans and dogs may have existed since prehistoric times. After thousands of years, beneath layers of cold earth and time, the ancient man still rests beside his loyal companion, reminding us that some bonds are strong enough to transcend even death and the forgetting of history. 17 skeletons beneath a shallow pond reveal a tragedy from over 1,000 years ago. If someone told you that beneath the bottom of an ordinary pond in a small village, dozens of ancient human skeletons were hidden, would you believe it? Probably not, right? At first it sounds like something out of a movie, but unfortunately, it is a real discovery that took place in Sangguanmiao village, in Qiang City, Shandong Province, China. For many years, local residents passed by that pond every single day. The water surface looked calm and harmless, with no sign that a 1,000-year-old secret was lying beneath it. That changed the day the pond was drained. At that moment, an unexpected discovery immediately drew archaeologists to the site. As the mud at the bottom of the pond was gradually cleared away, the first traces of an ancient structure began to appear. And as the excavation continued deeper, experts realized this was not a simple structure. It was actually a large ancient tomb buried underground for centuries. After completing the survey, researchers determined that the tomb covered an area of about 3,230 square feet. Such a scale suggests that its owner may have been someone of high social status in ancient times. However, what shocked everyone was not only the size of the tomb, but what was found inside it. At first, archaeologists discovered countless animal bones scattered throughout the excavation site. There were poultry bones, cattle bones, rib bones of rodents, and remains of various other animals. The number of animal remains was so large that some experts joked it looked as if the tomb's owner had brought an entire farm into the afterlife. So why would so many animals appear inside an ancient tomb? Were they burial offerings meant to serve the deceased in the afterlife? Or were they part of a forgotten ritual lost to history? It is difficult to say, but that was not the end of the mystery. It was only the beginning. As excavation continued, archaeologists unexpectedly discovered human skeletons as well. At first, only a few scattered remains were found. Then the number gradually increased with each layer of soil removed, revealing more disturbing fragments of an unknown story. In the end, the full count left researchers stunned. A total of 17 human skeletons were discovered inside the tomb complex. This number far exceeded initial expectations. Even more striking, the individuals buried there were not of the same age or gender. They included adult men, women, elderly individuals, and even children. In fact, the remains of 2 young children were also identified among the deceased. This immediately raised a series of questions. Who were they? Why were 17 people buried in the same tomb complex? Were they members of a large family? Servants buried alongside a master? Or victims of a tragic event that occurred more than 1,000 years ago? Unfortunately, time has erased nearly all crucial clues. There are no written records, no tomb inscriptions, and no clearly identifiable artifacts that could reveal the identities of the deceased. All that remains are silent skeletons lying beneath the ground, as if still guarding their secret. Thus, these questions remain unanswered. Based on the architectural structure and surviving evidence, experts tentatively believe the tomb may date back to the late Eastern Han Dynasty, over 1,000 years ago. However, the more it is studied, the more puzzling it becomes. If this was a noble's tomb, why were so many individuals buried together? If it was a mass burial site, why were there so many animal remains and signs of careful construction? To this day, the story of the 17 skeletons beneath the pond in Shandong still has no official explanation. Each skeleton stands like a silent witness of history, perhaps telling the story of a tragedy or a mysterious ritual that modern humans have yet to fully understand. The tomb of Trong Tui's son reveals an untouched treasure buried for over 2,000 years. In Eastern history, few stories leave as deep a sense of sorrow as the tragic love tale of Mai Cho and Trong Tui. One, through blind trust, unknowingly brought about the downfall of her father's kingdom. The other, bound by filial duty, betrayed the deepest love of his life. In the end, both met tragic fates. Yet few people know that this story never truly ended. More than 2,000 years later, a groundbreaking archaeological discovery brought the descendant of Trong Tui back into the light of history. The story begins in Guangzhou, Guangdong Province, China, a land with over 2,000 years of history, believed to preserve countless secrets of the ancient Non-Yue kingdom. On an ordinary workday at a construction site at the foot of Mount Xianggang, an unexpected accident occurred. A worker slipped and fell into a deep pit that had suddenly opened in the ground. Fortunately, he was not injured, but what he saw at the bottom of the pit shocked everyone. The worker reported that there was a massive bronze vessel sitting in the darkness below. Immediately, the construction team realized this could be the trace of an ancient relic and quickly reported it to the Guangzhou Cultural Heritage Authorities. At that moment, no one expected that this accidental fall would open the door to one of the most important archaeological excavations in modern Chinese history. Yet that unexpected moment became reality. After experts began excavation, a massive tomb gradually emerged from beneath the ground. The burial site lay about 56 feet below the surface and was constructed from enormous stone blocks tightly fitted together. The entire structure consisted of 7 interconnected chambers, with walls reaching up to 39 feet in height. On these walls, ancient murals depicting the sun god and the moon god were still visible, despite being over 2 millennia old. But what astonished archaeologists the most was that the tomb had almost never been looted. After more than 2,000 years underground, it still preserved nearly everything the owner had taken into the afterlife. When the massive stone doors were finally opened, archaeologists were confronted with a vast treasure of over 10,000 artifacts. From bronze ware, pottery, and lacquerware to jade treasures, everything remained in astonishing condition. Inside the tomb, they also discovered 15 skeletons of concubines and servants who had been buried alongside the ruler. This detail clearly indicated that the person buried there must have held extremely high status. Then came a crucial discovery that solved the mystery. Archaeologists found a perfectly preserved ancient seal. Based on the inscription, they identified the tomb's owner as Zhao Wenwang, the second king of the Non-Yue kingdom. Zhao Wenwang, whose personal name was Zhao Mo, was the grandson of Zhao Tuo and is believed to have been the son of Giao Trong Tui, the legendary figure from Vietnam's My Chao Trong Tui tale. After Trong Tui died before Giao Tuo, Giao Mo ascended the throne of Nan Yue in 137 BC. One of the most astonishing discoveries in the tomb was Zhao Wenwang's body, wrapped in an incredibly intricate jade burial suit. This funerary garment was about 5 feet 8 inches long and made from 2,291 jade plaques, meticulously assembled with silk and linen. During the Han Dynasty, jade burial suits represented the highest level of funerary ritual, reserved exclusively for royalty and the highest-ranking nobles. Ancient people believed jade could protect the body from decay, preserve the skeleton, and allow the deceased to await rebirth in the future. Beyond this rare jade suit, the tomb also contained countless treasures that left archaeologists in awe. Jade artifacts, gold-inlaid swords, bronze bells, and thousands of other precious objects. Each item reflects the immense wealth and power of the Nan Yue kingdom more than 2,000 years ago. However, the question that interests many Vietnamese the most remains unanswered. Was Zhao Wenwang's mother Mai Chao? To this day, history has not provided a definitive answer. Ancient records contain very little information about Zhao Mo's mother. However, in the work Thien Nam Nguluk, written in the late 17th century, it is mentioned that Mai Chao gave birth to a son, and that the child was deeply loved by King Ndung Vung, who even considered passing the throne to his grandson. Later, Trong Tui reportedly took the child to Nan Yue, claiming it was to visit his parents and to protect him from future political turmoil. But whether this is history or legend, the discovery of Zhao Wenwang's tomb remains one of the most important archaeological finds ever made in Guangzhou. It not only helps researchers better understand the ancient Nan Yue kingdom, but also unexpectedly reconnects one of the most tragic and famous stories in Vietnamese history, bringing secrets thought to have been buried for over 2,000 years back into the light of archaeology once again. Fascinating, isn't it? 14 skeletons buried beneath a construction site in China for 4,000 years. You know, archaeology is fascinating. Some discoveries do more than rewrite history. They leave modern people speechless when confronted with them. And the story you're about to hear is one of those discoveries. It began at an ordinary construction site in 1999 in Qinghai Province, China. That day, while excavators were digging for a construction project, workers unexpectedly noticed unusual signs beneath the ground. At first, it was only a few scattered bone fragments, but as the digging continued deeper, the truth became even more shocking. Beneath layers of earth that had remained untouched for thousands of years lay an entire mass burial site. Without hesitation, local residents reported the discovery to the regional archaeological authorities. Within a short time, an archaeological team from the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences, along with cultural heritage experts, arrived at the site. The area was later identified as the Lajia Archaeological Site, located in Lajia Village, Guanting Town, Minhe County, Qinghai Province, in the upper reaches of China's Yellow River. Covering nearly 99 acres in total, including a core excavation area of about 49 acres, the site was once a Neolithic settlement. What makes it truly remarkable, however, is that it is considered the only archaeological site in China that preserves evidence of a large-scale natural disaster in an almost untouched state. After a careful excavation, archaeologists working at location number 4 uncovered a total of 14 human skeletons. What stood out was that most of them were children and teenagers. The youngest was estimated to have been only about 2 years old. Every skeleton was found in a position suggesting that death came suddenly, leaving no time to react. Some were curled up as if trying to protect themselves. Others lay motionless on their sides. A few appeared frozen in the middle of crawling, as though desperately searching for a way to escape. But among all these heartbreaking scenes, one discovery left the entire archaeological team stunned into silence. A mother was found tightly embracing her young child. Her body leaned toward the child, and her arms were wrapped around the small figure as if, even while the world collapsed around them, she refused to let go. Her head was tilted upward, almost as though she were pleading for one final miracle in the last moments between life and death. No one could find words to describe the scene. It was no longer simply archaeology. It was a story of maternal love frozen in time for 4,000 years. Yet that was not the end of the mystery. When DNA testing was conducted, experts made an even more astonishing discovery. All 14 individuals were biologically related. They were likely members of the same family or a closely connected group of relatives who had all perished in the same catastrophic event. Researchers believe a powerful earthquake struck the settlement around 4,000 years ago, destroying the community in a very short period of time. And it wasn't only human remains that drew attention. Archaeologists also uncovered another sensational find: traces of an ancient bowl of noodles. Analysis revealed that the people who lived there used millet to make a noodle-like food, providing evidence that their food processing techniques were far more advanced than previously believed. This remarkable discovery later helped place the Lajia site among China's 10 most important archaeological discoveries of its time. Looking back at the entire site, what remains most memorable is perhaps not the numbers or the artifacts, but the overwhelming emotion felt when considering the fate of the people who once lived there. People who loved one another, cared for one another, and shared their lives together. Because sometimes history is not written only through victories and inventions. Sometimes it is written through silent moments buried beneath the earth, where a mother continues to hold her child even after the world around them has ceased to exist. What do you think about this discovery? Do you see it the same way, or do you have a different perspective? If so, don't hesitate to leave a comment below and share your thoughts with everyone. 2,000-year-old megastructure longer than the Great Wall of China, yet few Chinese people even know its name. If I told you there is a structure longer than the Great Wall of China, one that has existed for more than 2,000 years and sustained life across one of the harshest regions on Earth, yet remains largely unknown, would you believe me? Probably not, right? But the truth is, this is no legend. It is real, and that reality lies hidden beneath the ground in Xinjiang, China. It is an underground water system known as the Kerez. What's remarkable is that whenever people talk about China's ancient wonders, the Great Wall is almost always the first thing that comes to mind. Yet during roughly the same historical period, another engineering achievement was taking shape, one that was arguably even more practical, quieter in its existence, and no less important. The difference is that it doesn't stand above the ground for tourists to admire. Instead, it lies deep beneath the earth, known by relatively few people and nearly forgotten by the public. To understand why it was built, we need to travel back more than 2,000 years to Xinjiang. This was a land where simply standing under the sun for a few hours was enough to experience its harshness. Rainfall was extremely scarce, the heat was intense, and water evaporated so quickly that the soil often dried before it could absorb enough moisture. The people living there endured chronic water shortages. Crops frequently failed, and famine was a recurring threat. Against this backdrop, historical records indicate that during the reign of Emperor Wu of Han, 156 BC to 87 BC, the emperor recognized the vital importance of water to the region's survival. As a result, he ordered the construction of an underground water diversion system designed to support agriculture and improve the lives of local residents. This marked the beginning of the Kerez system. What makes Kerez so extraordinary is its remarkably intelligent design. Ancient engineers took advantage of the meltwater flowing from the snow-covered mountains of Xinjiang. Rather than allowing the water to run across the surface and evaporate in the intense heat, they dug underground tunnels along the foothills, channeling water from glaciers and snow-fed streams deep beneath the earth. The system was then connected by a series of vertical wells, allowing people to access water directly from below ground. Can you imagine that? The entire network operated naturally, without pumps, without electricity, and without modern technology, yet it was capable of transporting water for thousands of miles beneath the surface. By keeping the water underground, the system greatly reduced evaporation, allowing it to remain cool and stable throughout the year. Once completed, Kerez transformed life in Xinjiang. Areas that had once been dry and barren suddenly had access to irrigation. Crops began to flourish again, and the threat of famine gradually faded. Life was no longer merely about survival. It became a chance to truly live and prosper. Over time, the system was not only maintained, but continuously expanded. Today, the total length of its underground channels is estimated to be about 3,100 miles, making it nearly twice as long as the Great Wall of China. In addition, approximately 1,700 wells were constructed to access and manage the water supply. creating an enormous underground network beneath the region. But why do so few people know about such a massive achievement? The answer is surprisingly simple. It was never built to impress anyone. It was not a fortress. It was not a symbol of political power. It was not designed as a tourist attraction. It had only one purpose: to bring water and life to people. And because of that, it was quietly forgotten by time. Even today, many people in China have never heard of its existence, yet its value has never disappeared. Thanks to the Kharez system, the Turpan region of Xinjiang has become one of the world's major grape-growing areas. The famous grapes and raisins produced there are known for their exceptional sweetness, not only because of the climate, but also because of the cold, pure water flowing from mountain snow, traveling through these ancient tunnels for more than 2,000 years. Isn't that incredible? The joke-telling tomb of the King of Chu that made archaeologists laugh at Lion Mountain in China. The story began in February 1982 in the city of Suzhou, China. At the time, a local resident was quarrying stone in an area southeast of Heping Bridge when he unexpectedly noticed unusual signs beneath the layers of rock and soil. No one could have imagined that beneath a small hill standing about 200 feet high, whose shape resembled a lion and therefore became known as Lion Mountain, a secret had been hidden for thousands of years. As soon as archaeologists received the report, they rushed to the site. After only preliminary surveys, they confirmed that this was no ordinary tomb. Its scale was simply too large. Covering more than 7,500 square feet, it was clearly the burial place of someone of royal status. But what truly astonished everyone was the structure inside. As excavations continued deeper, archaeologists discovered that the entire tomb had been carved directly into the mountain itself, resembling a genuine underground palace. There were not just one or two chambers, but a total of 15 rooms arranged in an almost perfectly symmetrical layout, each serving a specific purpose. Can you imagine that? It was a tomb that contained bedrooms, reception halls, kitchens, and even areas designated for horses. The southern section housed the coffin of the male owner, while the northern section was reserved for the female owner. The front area was arranged as a space for receiving guests and conducting ceremonial offerings. In many ways, it looked far more like an underground palace than a place of eternal rest. After extensive research, experts eventually identified the site as the tomb of Liu Jiao, King Yuan of Chu, the second king of the Chu kingdom and the younger brother of Emperor Gaozu of Han, Liu Bang. Liu Jiao had fought alongside Liu Bang during the wars that unified China and earned numerous achievements. As a reward, he was granted the title of King of Chu and given authority over the region around ancient Suzhou. Yet the detail that makes this story truly unique was not the architecture at all. Instead, it was a surprising discovery found right outside the tomb entrance. During the excavation, archaeologists uncovered an inscribed stone tablet, and when they translated the text, the entire team could not help but laugh. Because instead of leaving behind the solemn words one might expect from a king, King Yuan of Chu had written something that sounded almost like a humorous plea directed at future tomb robbers. The message essentially read, "To the worthy people of future generations, I am the King of Chu, but I swear there are no valuable treasures inside this tomb, only bones. If you have read this far, surely you must feel some sympathy for me. Therefore, please do not waste your effort digging here." At first glance, it sounds like a warning, but the way it was written feels both serious and strangely playful at the same time. It may well be one of the most unusual anti-tomb robbing strategies in Chinese history. Rather than using traps, hidden mechanisms, or decoy tombs like many other rulers, he chose to rely on persuasion. Unfortunately, reality proved far less cooperative. As archaeologists ventured deeper into the tomb, they discovered evidence that grave robbers had already broken in long ago. Many priceless treasures had disappeared centuries earlier, meaning King Yuan of Chu's heartfelt request had done little to stop them. Even so, the excavation produced extraordinary results. More than 100 valuable artifacts were recovered, including bronze chariots, terracotta warriors, official seals, ancient coins, jade jewelry, and even an exquisitely crafted jade suit of armor. It was the combination of a magnificent underground palace, royal heritage, and the king's unexpectedly humorous message that led archaeologists to nickname the site the Pyramid of the East. Because the more they studied this tomb, the more they realized it contained not only remarkable artifacts, but also something much rarer. A glimpse into the very human personality of a king who lived more than 2,000 years ago. Isn't that fascinating? The 2,100-year-old mummy that left an entire archaeological team with a mysterious illness. Have you ever noticed something fascinating about archaeology? Sometimes the discoveries that astonish scientists the most are not gold, jewels, or priceless artifacts, but the people who lived thousands of years before us. After all, time can destroy palaces, rot wood, and stone, and erase countless traces of history. Yet every now and then, archaeologists come across a discovery that defies imagination. And the story that unfolded in Hubei Province, China in 1975 is one such example. In the first half of 1975, archaeologists began excavating a Western Han Dynasty tomb at Phoenix Mountain in Jiangling County. At first, it was considered a routine archaeological dig. No one suspected that beneath layers of earth that had remained undisturbed for more than 2 millennia lay a secret that would shock the entire archaeological community. After many days of continuous work, the research team finally reached the main coffin. As with any excavation, everyone eagerly anticipated what the ancients had left behind. But the moment a small gap appeared in the coffin lid, something unusual happened. A powerful foul odor immediately rushed out from inside, so strong that several people instinctively stepped back. Then, an even stranger sight emerged. A mysterious red liquid began flowing out of the coffin, leaving everyone at the site stunned. The archaeologists quickly collected the substance and managed to fill 4 bags with the strange liquid. At that moment, no one realized they were about to witness one of the most memorable archaeological discoveries in Chinese history. When the coffin was finally opened completely, everyone stood frozen in disbelief. Instead of finding a skeleton or a badly decayed body, as is usually the case, they found the remarkably preserved corpse of a man. His skin was still pale. His body remained full and intact. His joints could still be moved, and most astonishingly, his skin retained a surprising degree of elasticity. Although all of his hair was gone, the level of preservation far exceeded anyone's expectations. Just imagine it, a body buried during the Western Han Dynasty that had remained in such condition for more than 2,000 years. And that wasn't all. Inside the deceased man's mouth, archaeologists discovered a milky white jade seal. Engraved on its surface was a single character, Sui. Based on inscriptions found within the tomb, researchers determined that the man belonged to the Sui family, came from Yangli in Jiangling County, and had held the rank of Wu Dafu during his lifetime. He was buried in the 13th year of the reign of Emperor Wen of Han, corresponding to 167 BC. That meant the mummy was more than 2,100 years old, nearly a century older than the famous mummy of Lady Xinjui. However, the excitement surrounding the discovery did not last long before another mystery emerged. Shortly after being exposed to outside air, the body began changing rapidly. Its pale skin gradually darkened. The soft tissues became thinner. Decomposition accelerated at a rate that surprised even experienced specialists. Realizing they were witnessing an exceptionally rare phenomenon, researchers immediately conducted a comprehensive examination. The results amazed the scientific community. The man had died at approximately 60 years of age. He weighed about 116 pounds and stood roughly 5 feet 6 inches tall. All 32 of his teeth remained intact. His respiratory tract showed no signs of blockage. His brain still occupied nearly 4/5 of the cranial cavity and weighed approximately 34 ounces. Blood vessels within the meninges were still clearly visible, and nearly all 12 pairs of cranial nerves could still be identified. Remarkably, specialists were even able to determine that he had type AB blood. These findings provided invaluable information, helping researchers gain a deeper understanding of the human body during the Western Han Dynasty more than 2,000 years ago. Yet while scientists were celebrating their extraordinary findings, something strange began happening. Xia Xiangjun and Chen Yang, 2 experts who had participated directly in the excavation, suddenly became ill. Large, unusual boils appeared on their bodies. Despite receiving medical treatment, doctors were initially unable to determine the cause. Even more alarming, other members of the excavation team soon began developing similar symptoms. As news spread, local residents became increasingly concerned. Many people believed the archaeologists had disturbed something forbidden and were suffering from a curse connected to the ancient tomb. But scientists refused to accept that explanation. Instead, they set out to uncover the real cause. After extensive investigations and analysis, the truth finally emerged. The illness had nothing to do with a curse. Ironically, it was linked to the very method that had preserved the mummy for more than 2,100 years. Ancient embalmers had immersed the body in a solution containing mercury sulfide, a substance capable of killing bacteria and significantly slowing decomposition. Thanks to this preservation method, the corpse had remained in an almost perfect state for more than 2 millennia. The skeleton of Chinese emperor was still clutching a mysterious object. In the history of China's Qing dynasty, the Guangxu emperor was perhaps one of the most remarkable rulers to experience such a fate. He was the son of heaven, the man regarded as the ruler of a vast empire. Yet for most of his life, he was unable to control even his own destiny. Ascending the throne at just 3 years old, Guangxu grew up under the overwhelming shadow of Empress Dowager Cixi. Virtually all important power within the imperial court remained firmly in her hands. Although he repeatedly sought to reform the Qing dynasty and rescue it from crisis, he was never able to overcome the forces that controlled him. The turning point came after the failure of the 100 Days Reform in 1898. Guangxu was placed under house arrest. From being an emperor, he became a man living under constant surveillance and severe restrictions within his own palace. The final years of his life were marked by loneliness, helplessness, and tragedy. Even today, his death remains one of the most controversial mysteries in Chinese history, as substantial evidence suggests that he may have been poisoned. After his death, Guangxu was buried in Chongling Mausoleum within the Western Qing tombs, one of the most famous imperial burial complexes of the Qing dynasty. Although it was not as lavish as the tomb of Empress Dowager Cixi, Chongling was still constructed according to imperial standards, featuring grand and impressive architecture. But even after death, it seems he was never truly allowed to rest in peace. In 1938, tomb robbers broke into Chongling Mausoleum. Many priceless treasures were stolen, making it the only imperial tomb in the Western Qing tombs complex to suffer such severe losses from grave robbers. Several decades later, archaeologists conducted a rescue excavation at Chongling in an effort to preserve whatever remained. When the excavation began, many hoped to uncover valuable artifacts from the Qing dynasty. But when the tomb chambers were finally opened, the reality before them was deeply disappointing. The interior was almost empty. The robbers had taken most of the treasures long ago. Everywhere were signs of digging and destruction. The entire mausoleum carried an overwhelming sense of emptiness, almost mirroring the fate of the emperor resting within it. However, while examining Guangxu's remains, archaeologists noticed an unexpected detail that immediately captured everyone's attention. The emperor's hands were still tightly gripping something. At first, no one knew what it was. Experts carefully opened the fingers that had remained closed for decades, and little by little, the secret was revealed. In Guangxu's left hand was an exquisitely crafted pair of jadeite bracelets. In his right hand was a precious piece of Hidian jade. At that moment, many people present at the site found themselves deeply moved. These were not objects the emperor could have held during his lifetime. Researchers believe they were most likely placed in his hands during the burial ceremony. Perhaps they were the final gifts from those who still mourned this unfortunate emperor, a last attempt to offer him some comfort after a life filled with suffering. But the story did not end there. While moving the coffin aside to continue their investigation, archaeologists made another surprising discovery. Beneath it was a hidden golden well. Inside were numerous valuable treasures that had escaped the notice of the tomb robbers. These artifacts were more than objects of material value. To archaeologists, they were historical evidence reflecting the respect and reverence people held for Guangxu after his death. The more experts studied the tomb, the more clearly they felt the tragedy of a ruler who had once tried to change the fate of his nation, yet could never control the fate of his own life. And perhaps the most emotional part of the story is not the number of treasures that remained hidden within the mausoleum. Instead, it is the image of a lonely emperor lying beneath the earth, his hands still tightly holding the final gifts that had been entrusted to him. In a life marked by loss, restriction, and constant control, those objects seem to have been among the very few things that truly belonged to him. And that perhaps is what makes this discovery so profoundly moving. The disturbing secret inside a 1,400-year-old Chinese tomb that terrified experts. Did you know that many of the world's most famous archaeological discoveries actually began as nothing more than local legends? Some stories are passed down from one generation to the next. Those who tell them believe them, while those who hear them remain skeptical. Yet sometimes, these seemingly baseless rumors lead archaeologists to discoveries that completely change our understanding of history. A powerful example of this comes from a small village in Taiyuan City, Shanxi Province, China. The village was called Wangjiafeng. On the eastern side of the village stood a low earthen mound that had sat quietly for centuries. From the outside, it looked no different from any ordinary hill in the countryside. But to the local residents, it carried a very special name, Wang Mupo, or the King's Tomb Slope. The village elders often told stories that beneath the mound lay the tomb of an important nobleman who had lived more than 1,000 years ago. No one knew where the story originated, and nobody had ever seen any evidence to support it. Yet for generations, the villagers continued to treat the site with a certain level of respect. Then one quiet night, everything suddenly changed. A loud explosion shattered the silence, waking many residents from their sleep. Carrying flashlights, people rushed toward the source of the sound and were met with a disturbing sight. Part of the mound had been blasted open, revealing a deep, dark hole leading far beneath the earth. At that moment, many villagers remembered seeing suspicious strangers wandering around the area in the weeks before the incident. It wasn't difficult to guess what had happened. Most likely, tomb robbers had attempted to break into whatever was hidden below. The incident was quickly reported to local authorities, and archaeologists soon arrived to investigate. After an initial examination, experts realized this was no ordinary hole in the ground. It appeared to lead into a large ancient structure buried deep underground. However, it would take years of research before scholars could confirm the truth. The site was eventually identified as the tomb of Shu Xianxiu, a high-ranking official who lived during the Northern Qi dynasty. Located in Taiyuan, Shanxi Province, the tomb was built around AD 571, meaning it had remained hidden for more than 1,400 years. Yet the reason the site became famous was due to an unusual incident that occurred during the early stages of the investigation. According to accounts that later circulated, one expert descended into the tomb alone to inspect the interior. The passageway was narrow, deep, and extremely dark, creating an unusually oppressive atmosphere. The farther he descended, the colder and more unsettling the environment felt. Just imagine standing alone inside a tomb that had been sealed for more than a millennium, surrounded by complete darkness and absolute silence. What would that feel like? Then, just as the expert raised his flashlight to get a better look, the light suddenly went out. In an instant, darkness swallowed everything. And in that darkness, he thought he saw countless human-like figures standing motionless on both sides of the tomb. The shadowy forms appeared to stretch throughout the burial chamber, creating the eerie sensation that hundreds of silent people were watching the newcomer. Startled by the sight and trapped within the darkness of the enclosed space, the expert immediately turned around and rushed back outside. Before long, the story spread throughout the region. Rumors quickly began to grow. Some believed the tomb was haunted. Others claimed that its long-dead owner did not want to be disturbed after more than 1,000 years of rest. But when archaeologists conducted a more thorough investigation, the truth turned out to be far less supernatural. The flashlight had simply malfunctioned because of an unstable power source, and the terrifying people inside the tomb were actually something far more extraordinary. Once proper lighting was restored, archaeologists discovered that both sides of the entrance corridor and nearly every interior wall were covered with enormous murals. The painted figures were almost life-sized. Their facial expressions were vivid, and the artistic skill displayed in the paintings was astonishing. Under poor lighting conditions, it was easy to understand why they appeared to be real people standing silently inside the tomb. And that wasn't all. Experts found that the tomb preserved more than 3,200 square feet of murals containing more than 200 different figures. The paintings vividly depict the lives of Northern Qi aristocrats, including ceremonial rituals, banquets, horse-drawn processions, honor guards, mythical creatures, and grand official journeys. Each mural serves as a window into a world that existed more than 1,400 years ago, allowing us to visualize the culture, music, clothing, social order, and daily life of a civilization long since gone. The importance of the discovery was so great that the Taiyuan Northern Qi Mural Museum was built directly at the archaeological site and officially opened in December 2023 to preserve these priceless works of art. What makes the story especially fascinating is that the very thing that once frightened local residents ultimately became one of the most significant artistic discoveries in Chinese archaeology. Experts now regard the tomb of Shu Xianxu as one of the finest surviving examples of Northern Qi mural art and have even praised it as a masterpiece of Chinese art history. And perhaps the most memorable moment in this entire story remains that instant when the flashlight suddenly went dark deep beneath the earth. Because when the light disappeared, people saw terrifying figures standing in the shadows. But when the light returned, what emerged was not a supernatural mystery at all. It was an entire world of art that had slept beneath the ground for more than 1,400 years. The giant, 100-foot skeleton found beneath the Mediterranean Sea. The story began when a group of workers in the oil and gas industry were conducting an underwater survey using a remotely operated vehicle, commonly known as an ROV. While observing the seafloor at a depth of approximately 2,720 feet below sea level, the vehicle's camera suddenly captured something that immediately drew everyone's attention. Lying amid the dark mud on the ocean floor was a gigantic skeleton that appeared to be almost completely intact. From the very first images, it was obvious that this was no ordinary discovery. The skeleton stretched nearly 100 feet in length. Its vertebrae formed a long continuous chain, while one end featured larger bone-like structures resembling a skull or the head of some enormous creature. However, what astonished researchers was not merely its massive size. The real mystery was that the skeleton's shape did not resemble any known marine animal recorded in the region. When the footage was sent to researcher of unexplained phenomena, Deborah Hatswell, she became immediately fascinated. After reviewing the video frame by frame multiple times, Hatswell still could not determine exactly what she was looking at. Eventually, she decided to upload the footage to her YouTube channel in the hope that the international research community might help solve the mystery. According to Hatswell, the workers discovered the skeleton while surveying the seafloor with the ROV. At first, she considered the possibility that it might be the remains of a whale. However, after comparing the skeletal structure, that theory was quickly dismissed. The reason was simple. A whale's vertebrae typically have three distinctive projections, spaced approximately 120 degrees apart. The specimen on the seafloor, however, appeared to possess only two similar structures. This difference prevented experts from classifying it as any known species of whale. Another theory suggested that it could belong to a giant oarfish, currently the longest bony fish in the world. But that explanation also faced a major problem. Even the largest known oarfish reached lengths of only about 36 feet. The mysterious skeleton appeared to be nearly 3 times that size. The more researchers examined the evidence, the more difficult the mystery became to explain. Divers involved in the survey reported that they believed the skeleton had been lying on the seafloor for a very long time, possibly more than 1,000 years. What first attracted their attention were several protruding structures resembling tusks or bone segments emerging from the thick layer of mud. In the footage, the ROV operator attempted to use the vehicle's robotic arm to collect samples for analysis. But the moment the arm touched the remains, the material immediately crumbled apart. The fragments were so brittle that obtaining an intact sample proved nearly impossible. This detail only deepened the mystery surrounding the skeleton's true age. While researchers continue searching for answers, the internet has generated countless theories of its own. One of the most frequently discussed suggestions is that the remains could belong to a Tylosaurus, a gigantic marine reptile that dominated the oceans during the late Cretaceous period, approximately 75 to 86.5 million years ago. At first glance, the idea seems plausible. Tylosaurus was indeed a massive and fearsome predator. However, that theory also faces a significant challenge. If the remains truly dated back tens of millions of years, most of the bones would likely have survived only in fossilized form. The apparent presence of bone-like structures in the video has prevented many scientists from reaching a definitive conclusion. To this day, the true identity of the 100-foot-long skeleton resting on the floor of the Mediterranean Sea remains an unanswered question. Yet mysteries like this are precisely what make exploring the natural world so fascinating. Because sometimes, even in an age of advanced technology, the depths of the ocean still conceal secrets capable of leaving the scientific community puzzled, intrigued, and searching for answers. The 1,200-year-old well, with 3,500 mysterious steps in India. Have you ever wondered how people survived in arid regions long before the invention of water pumps, pipelines, and the modern technologies we rely on today? If that question sparks your curiosity, then the story of an ancient structure in India may completely change the way you view the ingenuity of our ancestors. Why? Because more than 1,200 years ago, while many parts of the world were still relying on relatively simple methods of storing water, the people of Rajasthan built a structure that served not only as a vital water source, but also as an architectural masterpiece that continues to amaze modern researchers. That structure is known as Chand Baori, often referred to by its poetic nickname, the Moon Well. Located in the state of Rajasthan in western India, Chand Baori was built sometime between the 8th and 9th centuries during the reign of King Chanda of the Nikumba dynasty. More than 1,000 years later, it still stands as a remarkable testament to the intelligence and engineering skills of ancient builders. What makes Chand Baori especially fascinating is that, when viewed from above, it looks nothing like the ordinary wells most of us imagine. Instead, it resembles a gigantic geometric labyrinth made up of thousands of perfectly arranged stone steps. If you stand at the top and look down, you will see countless straight lines, sharp angles, and stairways interwoven in a precise zigzag pattern. The result is a breathtaking sight that is both beautiful and overwhelming. According to historical records and modern research, Chand Baori has a square design featuring approximately 3,500 steps spread across 13 levels and descending nearly 100 feet into the ground. 3 sides of the well are completely covered with symmetrical staircases. Each row of stone is arranged with such precision that many people find it hard to believe the structure was built more than 1,000 years ago. The 4th side features an intricately designed temple complex. Although it is not particularly massive or extravagant, the carvings and architectural details demonstrate the advanced craftsmanship of the period. Some historical sources even suggest that the area once served as a royal retreat during the scorching summer months. But Chand Baori is much more than a beautiful structure. To truly understand its significance, we need to look back at the environmental conditions of Rajasthan more than 1,000 years ago. This region was, and still is, one of the driest areas in India. Long periods of intense heat, limited rainfall, and chronic water shortages made access to water a matter of survival. As a result, finding effective ways to store water became one of the most important challenges facing local communities. Chand Baori emerged as a brilliant solution. The structure functioned like a massive underground reservoir. It collected rainwater from the surface while also accessing groundwater from below. Thanks to its deep staircase system, people could reach the water regardless of seasonal fluctuations in water levels. For centuries, Chand Baori supplied precious water to thousands of residents living in the surrounding area. Its role as a water source gradually came to an end only after modern water distribution systems were introduced. Today, the water inside the well no longer meets modern sanitation standards for daily use. However, that has done nothing to diminish its appeal. Every year, thousands of international visitors travel to Rajasthan to see this extraordinary architectural wonder with their own eyes. There is another fascinating aspect to Chand Baori as well. Local residents often compare it to a giant natural air conditioner. The reason is that temperatures at the bottom of the well are typically about 9 to 11 degrees Fahrenheit cooler than at ground level. During the hottest summer days, it served as a popular gathering place where people could escape the heat. The more researchers study Chand Baori, the more amazed they become by the skill of the people who designed it. After all, creating thousands of symmetrical steps, ensuring structural stability, and maintaining a functioning water storage system for more than a millennium is no simple achievement. Many experts believe Chand Baori stands as clear evidence of the advanced mathematical knowledge and engineering capabilities of ancient Indian civilization. It also strengthens the view that, alongside ancient Egypt, India was one of the world's most important centers for the development of mathematics and science. Yet not everyone believes this incredible structure was built solely through human effort. Even today, the people of Rajasthan continue to share a colorful local legend. According to the story, King Chanda received help from divine beings, and the entire Chand Baori well was constructed in a single night. Of course, that is only a legend, but perhaps the sheer magnificence of the structure makes it understandable why some people find it difficult to believe that humans living more than 1,200 years ago could have created something so extraordinary without a touch of magic. So what do you think? Do you believe the legend, or do you have another explanation? If so, don't hesitate to leave a comment below and share your thoughts with everyone. Ancient warrior's tomb reveals a golden treasure that shocked archaeologists. The discovery was announced on August 24, 2024, when Ancient Origins reported on a remarkable archaeological find in the village of Kapitan Petko Voivoda, near the city of Topolovgrad in Bulgaria. There, archaeologists uncovered an ancient tomb belonging to a Thracian warrior who lived during the early 1st century AD, a period when the Roman Empire was expanding its influence across Europe. From the very first artifacts that emerged from the soil, researchers realized that the owner of this tomb was no ordinary individual. Buried alongside the skeletal remains was a dazzling collection of golden treasures. Among the discoveries were an exquisite gold necklace, a finely crafted gold crown, a gold ring, and several other valuable objects. Most remarkable of all was a hunting knife with a handle decorated with gold and semi-precious stones, making it an especially beautiful and unique artifact. You know, more than 2,000 years ago, not just anyone could own such luxurious possessions. For that reason alone, the artifacts found within the tomb clearly suggest that its owner once held a very high social status. What makes the discovery even more fascinating is that it was not the result of months of difficult searching. According to officials from the municipality of Topolovgrad, the archaeological team uncovered the treasure on just the second day of excavation. In many ways, archaeology is like a conversation with the past. Some secrets take decades to uncover, while others seem eager to tell their stories. The excavation was led by archaeologist Daniela Agre of the National Archaeological Institute and Museum of the Bulgarian Academy of Sciences. As layer after layer of soil was carefully removed, more artifacts appeared, allowing experts to paint an increasingly detailed picture of the individual buried within the tomb. In addition to the gold jewelry, researchers discovered several weapons and a remarkably well-preserved breastplate. These artifacts revealed that the deceased was a genuine warrior, but not merely an ordinary soldier. According to experts, he was most likely a cavalryman from the noble class, or perhaps a member of a wealthy and influential Thracian family. Another discovery provided even stronger support for this theory. Beside the warrior's remains, archaeologists also found the remains of a horse that had been buried alongside its owner. In many ancient cultures, burying a horse with the deceased was a privilege reserved only for individuals of high status or exceptionally respected warriors. This suggests that the owner of the tomb was a person of great importance during his lifetime. Strange creature crawled out of a 2,000-year-old royal tomb. When most people think of an ancient tomb being excavated, they probably imagine gold, silver, priceless treasures, and priceless artifacts that have remained buried for thousands of years. And in many cases, that is exactly what archaeologists hope to find. Ancient royalty and nobles firmly believed that after death, they would continue their existence in another world. Because of this belief, they were often buried with vast amounts of wealth, precious jewelry, and valuable possessions, so they could continue enjoying a life of luxury in the afterlife. However, during an excavation in China's Hubei province, the discovery that astonished archaeologists the most was not gold, silver, or ancient artifacts. Instead, it was the unexpected appearance of a living creature emerging from inside a tomb that had existed for more than 2,000 years. The story began when a local farmer was working in his field. Following a series of heavy rainstorms, severe soil erosion exposed traces of an ancient structure hidden deep beneath the ground. Sensing that something unusual had been uncovered, the farmer immediately reported the discovery to local archaeological authorities. Within a short time, a team of experts arrived at the site to conduct an investigation. What they saw upon arrival immediately raised concerns. The ancient tomb had suffered extensive damage from rainwater erosion, and several sections appeared to be at risk of collapsing at any moment. During their initial assessment, archaeologists also discovered evidence that tomb robbers had broken into the site long ago. Despite this, modern surveying equipment revealed that the tomb was more than 2,000 years old, making it an exceptionally valuable historical site. A large-scale rescue excavation was launched immediately. The greatest challenge facing the team was the enormous amount of water that had accumulated inside the tomb. Not only was the exterior affected, but the burial chambers themselves were completely flooded. If the water was not removed quickly, any surviving artifacts could be permanently damaged. Archaeologists brought in high-capacity pumps and operated them continuously for hours to drain the tomb before beginning the official excavation. As they moved deeper inside, the team made a surprising discovery. Although tomb robbers had entered the site centuries earlier, many valuable artifacts remained untouched and still rested in their original positions. Based on the tomb's architectural design, construction scale, and burial goods, experts determined that it was a royal tomb dating to the Western Han Dynasty. The finely crafted walls and extensive network of burial chambers suggested that the tomb's owner had once held a position of great importance. But just as the excavation was progressing smoothly, something happened that no one had ever seen before. From a dark corner inside the tomb, a large turtle suddenly appeared and slowly crawled out in full view of the excavation team. Everyone was stunned. What caught their attention most was the turtle's unusually aged appearance. Its dark shell, covered with the marks of time, made many observers wonder whether they were looking at a creature that seemed to belong to another era. Debates erupted almost immediately. Some believed the turtle might be a descendant of an ancient species that had inhabited the region for thousands of years. Others proposed a far more extraordinary theory, that the turtle could somehow be directly connected to the tomb's original owner. According to this idea, the turtle may have been a beloved pet during the owner's lifetime and was buried alongside him after his death. However, this theory quickly faced serious skepticism. Although turtles are famous for their long lifespans, the possibility of a single turtle surviving continuously for more than 2,000 years lies far beyond anything supported by modern science. Most turtles live only a few decades, and even individuals reaching 100 years of age are considered exceptionally rare. For this reason, the mystery of the ancient turtle discovered in the Western Han tomb remains unsolved to this day. Was it simply a resident that had accidentally chosen the ancient tomb as its shelter? Or was it a remarkable survivor, a living witness from a world that disappeared more than 2 millennia ago? Scientists are still searching for the answer. Hopefully, the mystery will be solved in the near future. Until then, the only thing we can do is wait. 13,000-year-old skeleton with ancient mixed ancestry. In the Trang An region of Ninh Binh Province, Vietnam, famous for its magnificent limestone mountains and mysterious cave systems, scientists have made a discovery that is being considered historically significant not only for Vietnam, but for the entire world. Deep inside Thung Binh 1 Kimi Cave, located within the Trang An Scenic Landscape Complex, archaeologists uncovered the skeleton of a prehistoric human dating back approximately 12,000 to 12,500 years ago, nearly 13 millennia in the past. At first, that number may be difficult to comprehend. But just imagine, long before many of humanity's famous civilizations had emerged, while people were still struggling to survive during the final stages of the Ice Age, this man once walked across the very land that is now modern-day Vietnam. What makes this discovery even more remarkable is the extraordinary state of preservation of the skeleton. But that was only the beginning. When experts conducted more detailed studies, they achieved something that many researchers had previously considered almost impossible under the hot, humid tropical climate of Southeast Asia. As you may know, high temperatures and humidity typically cause genetic material to deteriorate rapidly over time. Yet for the first time in history, scientists successfully extracted mitochondrial DNA from an ancient human skeleton discovered in Vietnam. The discovery immediately attracted the attention of the international scientific community. Not only is it the oldest mitochondrial DNA sample ever recovered in Vietnam, but it is also considered one of the oldest ancient human DNA samples ever successfully decoded from a tropical environment anywhere in the world. Because of its extraordinary importance, the skeleton was given an impressive name, the Trang An Warrior. What astonished scientists even more were the clues preserved within the remains themselves. Through analysis of the skull and other surviving bones, researchers determined that the individual was a man approximately 35 years old who possessed an unusually strong and robust physique for the prehistoric era. However, one shocking detail stood out. A quartz stone spearhead had become lodged directly in the man's neck. Just think about that for a moment. What happened nearly 13,000 years ago? Was it the result of a failed hunt or a violent conflict between groups of ancient people? Research indicates that the victim did not die immediately. He continued to live for several days, perhaps even several weeks, after receiving the wound before eventually succumbing to a severe infection. Even more intriguing, this type of finely crafted quartz spearhead had never before been documented at archaeological sites in Southeast Asia. As a result, the discovery is considered the earliest known evidence of armed conflict between prehistoric human communities on the Southeast Asian mainland. Yet the surprises did not end there. When scientists successfully decoded the ancient DNA, they discovered that the Trang-On warrior carried mixed ancestry from South Asian populations and indigenous Southeast Asian populations. This finding added an extremely valuable piece to the puzzle of human migration. It suggests that tens of thousands of years ago, ancient human groups were interacting, mixing, and connecting with one another in ways far more complex than researchers had previously believed. After being studied and evaluated by more than 20 universities and leading scientific institutions around the world, including experts from Denmark, the remarkable skeleton was transferred to Baidin Pagoda in Trang-On, where it is being respectfully preserved. In the near future, the Trang-On warrior will continue his journey back to the place where he rested for nearly 13,000 years. But perhaps what moves people most is not the age of the skeleton or the scientific data surrounding it. Instead, it is the fact that after nearly 13 millennia, this mysterious man has finally been able to tell his story to future generations. It is a story about human origins, survival, ancient migrations, and the conflicts that took place at the dawn of human history. 2,000-year-old jar containing a mysterious liquid left archaeologists shaken. My friend, imagine that one day archaeologists open an ancient tomb that has remained buried for nearly 2,000 years. Inside, they discover a jar that is still filled with liquid that has never dried up. What would you think it was? Water? Oil? Or perhaps some mysterious treasure left behind by an ancient civilization? It sounds more like something from an adventure movie than real life, doesn't it? Yet that extraordinary discovery actually took place at the ancient Carmo necropolis in Spain, where scientists uncovered one of the most intriguing artifacts in modern archaeological history. The artifact was a jar containing a strange liquid that had somehow remained in a liquid state for nearly 2 millennia. Can you imagine that? While most organic materials are destroyed, evaporate, or decompose over time, this liquid remained preserved inside an ancient glass vessel as if time had simply forgotten about it. The remarkable discovery was made inside an underground Roman mausoleum in the city of Carmona, Spain. According to experts, the tomb had miraculously escaped the attention of grave robbers for thousands of years. As a result, the entire burial chamber remained almost perfectly preserved, giving archaeologists a rare opportunity to observe a funeral ritual from the era of the Roman Empire. When the vessel was first removed from the tomb and analyzed, researchers initially believed it contained ancient red wine. The color of the liquid seemed to leave little room for doubt. However, the deeper they investigated, the more puzzling the mystery became. The archaeological team, led by expert Juan Manuel Roman, used a variety of modern chemical analysis techniques to identify the contents of the vessel. The results confirmed that the liquid was indeed wine. Polyphenols, chemical compounds commonly associated with grape skins, were still clearly detectable despite the passage of nearly 2,000 years. Yet one detail surprised everyone. Syringic acid, a compound typically found in red wine, was completely absent from the sample. That meant the liquid was not red wine at all, despite what its appearance suggested. So why was it red? That was when the story took a completely unexpected turn. During further analysis, scientists discovered that the vessel also contained organic material originating from human remains. In other words, what appeared to be a wine jar was actually a funerary urn. Doesn't that send a chill down your spine? For years, people might have imagined it as an ancient wine container miraculously preserved through time. But the truth was that the wine formed only one part of an ancient Roman burial ritual. After cremating the deceased, the Romans placed the ashes inside the vessel and filled it with white wine as an offering to accompany the soul into the afterlife. To this day, scientists still cannot say with certainty whether the cremated remains themselves caused the liquid to turn red. It is also possible that minerals or other compounds entered the vessel over thousands of years, creating the unusual color we see today. But regardless of the cause, the discovery remains extraordinary. In fact, the vessel set a new archaeological record. It officially became the oldest wine ever discovered in liquid form, surpassing a previously famous sample that dated back to the 4th century. As a result, the artifact's scientific significance increased dramatically. Of course, the secrets hidden within the mausoleum did not end there. The vessel had been carefully sealed inside a lead container and placed beside several other funerary urns, suggesting that the tomb may have served as the final resting place of a wealthy Roman family. Among the discoveries was a gold ring engraved with the image of Janus, the Roman god of time, beginnings, and transitions. Even more fascinating, archaeologists uncovered another glass urn containing the cremated remains of a woman named Hispana. Unlike the man whose ashes were immersed in wine, her remains were buried alongside valuable possessions, including amber jewelry, a crystal flask containing patchouli oil, and fragments of ancient silk fabric. After resting beneath the soil of Spain for nearly 2,000 years, the mysterious vessel finally revealed its story. It is a story not only about ancient wine, but also about belief, funerary customs, and the way people of the Roman world confronted death. And perhaps the most astonishing part of all is that a secret seemingly buried forever by time was able to return after 2 millennia and leave the entire world in awe. Two-horse chariot tomb reveals the secrets of a powerful Celtic general. In 2018, in East Yorkshire, England, what seemed like a routine event at a construction site unexpectedly opened a doorway into a world that existed more than 2,000 years ago. While construction work was underway, workers accidentally uncovered a mysterious ancient burial site hidden deep beneath the ground. At first, no one could have imagined that this discovery would later be regarded by archaeologists as one of the most important archaeological finds in Britain during the current millennium. What began as an ordinary discovery soon became a groundbreaking excavation. As archaeologists quickly arrived at the site and carefully removed layer after layer of ancient soil, they gradually uncovered a vast cemetery belonging to the Celtic culture that once dominated the British Isles in ancient times. The more they investigated, the more astonished they became by the number of warrior skeletons found at the site. Yet among all the graves, one burial captured the attention of every expert involved. It belonged to what appeared to be a powerful military commander, a man who had likely occupied a position of great importance within ancient Celtic society. What made this grave truly extraordinary was its exceptionally rare burial ritual. The commander's remains were discovered alongside a full set of armor, weapons, and provisions intended for his journey into the afterlife. But that was not all. Beside him lay a complete two-horse chariot that had been buried intact. This detail especially amazed archaeologists because chariot burials of this kind are rarely preserved in such remarkable condition. After spending more than 2 millennia underground, the scene that emerged before researchers still sent chills down their spines. The skeletons of the 2 horses were found inside the burial pit, and what stood out most was their position. They had been placed standing upright. The animals appeared as though they were waiting for a command to charge into battle, ready to pull the chariot forward at any moment. This was not merely a burial ritual. It reflected the deeply rooted spiritual beliefs of the Celtic people regarding life after death. According to research findings, the burial complex dates from approximately 320 BC to 174 BC. During this period, Celtic tribes controlled much of the British Isles. The region was strongly influenced by the Irish culture, a society known for its unusual and highly symbolic burial practices. Based on the artifacts recovered from the site, archaeologists believe the individual buried in the central grave was likely a noble warrior who was deeply respected within Celtic society. Evidence found on the skeleton suggests that he probably did not die in battle, but instead passed away at an advanced age. However, the large number of weapons and military equipment buried with him tells a different story. These items indicate that he was a seasoned commander who had participated in numerous major conflicts throughout his lifetime. Interestingly, the burial site contained far more than just this one commander. Surrounding the central grave, archaeologists discovered numerous additional burials belonging to younger warriors. The number of skeletons uncovered was so large that, if assembled together, they could have formed a small army. This discovery provided researchers with a clearer picture of an elite military class that existed in the Yorkshire region more than 2,000 years ago. Yet the story did not end there. After nearly a year of restoring and studying the artifacts recovered from the site, British archaeologists reached a surprising conclusion. Among all the valuable objects uncovered, one treasure stood above the rest. It was a Celtic shield considered to be one of the most significant archaeological artifacts ever discovered. As layers of rust and soil were carefully removed, the shield gradually revealed a beauty that astonished experts. It had been crafted by artisans of the famous Latin culture of ancient Europe. Artifacts of this quality were typically associated only with nobles, royalty, and society's highest-ranking elites. At the center of the shield was a prominent raised boss, while both sides were decorated symmetrically with exquisitely crafted triple-scroll motifs in relief. Before being buried underground, the shield would have displayed the brilliant golden shine of polished bronze. Its edges were surrounded by unique scallop-shaped borders, a design that researchers have never identified on any other Iron Age shield found anywhere in Europe. But what makes this artifact truly extraordinary is not only its artistic beauty. A deep sword strike remains visible on the shield's surface. This detail proves that it was not simply a ceremonial object or decorative display piece. It was a genuine battlefield weapon. Experts also discovered evidence that the shield had been repaired and modified multiple times before, eventually being buried with its owner. Because of its exceptional rarity and uniqueness, archaeologists have described this Celtic shield as the most important Celtic artwork discovered in Britain during the 3rd millennium. Its significance is so great that it has been compared to the legendary Wandsworth shield, which is currently housed at the British Museum. Skeleton, seated upright for more than 2,000 years, and the controversial sacrificial ritual hidden within an ancient English fortress. You know, the world of archaeology is truly fascinating. Some discoveries not only help us better understand history, but also reveal mysterious ancient rituals that can send chills down your spine when you hear about them. To illustrate that, let me take you to Maiden Castle, a famous site located in Dorset, England. This is not just an ordinary ancient structure. It is considered one of the largest and most complex Iron Age hill forts ever built in Europe. To put its size into perspective, the site covers an area roughly equivalent to 50 modern soccer fields combined. That scale alone demonstrates how important it once was. Viewed from above, Maiden Castle resembles a giant maze surrounded by multiple layers of defensive earthworks. Most of its fortifications were constructed around the 1st century BC. During its peak, hundreds of residents lived and were protected within its massive earthen walls. When these defenses were first built, the towering ramparts stood prominently above the surrounding landscape, creating a fortress that was nearly impossible to penetrate. Over the years, the site has become one of Britain's most important archaeological locations. Each excavation has added another piece to the puzzle of its history. More recently, researchers discovered a Neolithic enclosure dating to approximately 3,500 BC. In addition, they uncovered evidence of a Roman temple built around the 4th century AD. Layer upon layer of history has transformed Maiden Castle into a true archaeological treasure. Yet among all these significant discoveries, one skeleton has attracted particular attention from researchers. The remains were found in a cemetery dating to the late Iron Age, where many of the individuals buried there showed signs of severe injuries. This suggests that life at the site may have been closely linked to warfare, conflict, or harsh rituals. However, as experts studied the remains more closely, they realized this was far from an ordinary burial. When the final layer of soil was removed, archaeologists uncovered the skeleton of a young man between 20 and 30 years old. But instead of lying on his back, his side, or in the curled position commonly seen in Iron Age burials, this young man had been placed in an upright seated position. That was what astonished archaeologists. According to archaeological records, most people during the Iron Age were buried in a fetal position or with their bodies curled up. This was a common practice among many ancient communities in Britain. Yet the skeleton at Maiden Castle was completely different. The man's seated posture made the burial an exceptionally rare case. But the unusual nature of the discovery did not stop there. Professor Sharples believes that the location of the burial may be even more significant than the position of the body itself. To understand why, we need to travel back to around 350 BC. At that time, the inhabitants of Maiden Castle decided to expand the site and transform it into the largest hill fort in the region. In front of the fortress stood a massive V-shaped ditch approximately 20 feet deep. After a period of time, the ditch was filled in, and the residents began constructing a new defensive rampart above it. What is particularly noteworthy is that the young man's skeleton was buried precisely in an area associated with this expansion project. This coincidence led many researchers to propose a haunting possibility. Could this have been a deliberate human sacrifice performed to mark the construction of the new fortification? According to Professor Sharples, the theory is entirely plausible. He believes the placement of the young man's body in such a significant location was unlikely to be accidental. It is possible that he became a sacrificial offering in an ancient ritual intended to ensure that the new structure would be protected, remain strong, and bring power to the community. Although there is still no definitive evidence to prove this theory, the discovery at Maiden Castle remains one of the most intriguing archaeological mysteries in the United Kingdom. A skeleton seated upright beneath the earth for more than 2,000 years, a burial location that appears carefully chosen, and the possibility of an ancient sacrificial ritual have combined to create a story that continues to challenge scientists searching for answers. So, what do you think? Do you believe that beneath the peaceful hills of modern-day England, many more Iron Age secrets are still waiting silently to be discovered? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. The mysterious mummy, waiting to be reborn in an ancient tomb, left experts shaken. Just imagine this for a moment. What if archaeologists were to open a tomb that had remained buried for more than 1,000 years, only to discover not just a remarkably preserved mummy, but also a series of mysterious wooden heads inserted into the bodies of the dead? How terrifying would that scene be? It's probably hard to imagine, isn't it? Well, this is not a supernatural tale taken from legend. It is a real discovery that took place in 2018 at Pachacamac, a famous archaeological site in Peru, a country located in South America. At this location, once considered one of the most important religious centers of ancient civilizations, researchers uncovered a strange tomb filled with mysteries that science has still not been able to fully explain. The excavation was carried out by specialists from the Cria Patrimoine Archaeological Research Center of the Université Libre de Bruxelles. After months of meticulous work, they discovered a mummy that had been preserved in remarkably intact condition. Even after lying underground for more than 1,000 years, many details within the tomb remained surprisingly well preserved. Based on examinations and artifact analysis, researchers determined that the burial dates to between AD 1000 and AD 1200. That means the tomb had existed for more than 1,000 years before it was finally uncovered by modern humans. According to experts, the deceased had been wrapped inside a massive textile bundle. This wrapping was not merely a means of preserving the body. It also served as a unique type of coffin, reflecting the burial customs of ancient peoples in the region that is now Peru. However, the discovery that truly astonished archaeologists was hidden deep within the tomb itself. As they examined the internal structure, researchers found that the skeletal remains had not been arranged randomly. At the center of the burial chamber was the skeleton of an adult individual placed with great care and precision. Everything appeared to have been positioned according to a ritual that had been deliberately planned in advance. Yet surrounding this central skeleton were the remains of many other individuals, most of them children. What makes this especially intriguing is that these skeletons were not arranged neatly like the adult at the center. Instead, they appeared disorganized and seemed to have been placed in a highly intentional manner. This striking contrast immediately raised a series of questions among researchers. Why was one individual buried with such honor at the center while the others were arranged in such an unusual way? Was this simply a unique burial practice, or was it evidence of a secret religious ritual that had been lost to history? Archaeologist Peter Eckhout, the leader of the research team from the Université Libre de Bruxelles, believes the arrangement may be connected to an ancient concept of rebirth in the afterlife. According to his theory, the individuals found within the tomb may have played a role in assisting the deceased on a journey into a new existence after death. Some of those buried there may have died from illness or natural causes. However, researchers have not ruled out the possibility that some individuals may have been involved in spiritual sacrificial rituals. Based on the artifacts recovered from the site, Eekhout believes that the upper portion of the tomb was once covered with multiple layers of textiles along with valuable grave goods. This has led him to suspect that the site may have served as the final resting place of pilgrims. According to this hypothesis, these individuals may have traveled great distances to reach Pachacamac in search of a legendary cure-all remedy. Yet after completing their difficult journey, they may have succumbed to illness and been buried within this sacred place. Of course, this remains only a theory, but if it proves to be true, the tomb would represent much more than a burial site. It would reveal the profound faith ancient people placed in miracles and the spiritual world. Even so, the greatest mystery emerged from another discovery that sent chills through even the most experienced archaeologists. Inside the tomb, researchers found 5 false heads carved entirely from wood. At first glance, these objects resembled simple wooden sculptures, but upon closer examination, experts discovered something shocking. The wooden heads had not been placed separately as ordinary grave offerings. Instead, they had been inserted directly into the bodies of the mummified remains. The bizarre sight left many people at the excavation site deeply disturbed. Anthropologist Matthew Piscitelli from the University of Illinois believes these wooden heads may have served as sacrificial objects or symbolic guides intended to help the dead enter the afterlife. However, this remains only a hypothesis, as there is currently no conclusive evidence proving their true purpose. 1,000-year-old tomb with murals of 4 guardian deities shocks Korea. Have you ever wondered what ancient people believed happened after death? Did they think the journey to the afterlife required guides and protectors, much like the figures described in ancient legends? If you've ever asked yourself these questions but never found a satisfying answer, then join me on a journey to North Korea. There, archaeologists from the country's Cultural Heritage Authority recently discovered an ancient tomb built into a hillside in the Undok area of Ryonggang County, located west of the city of Nampo in South Pyongan Province. The tomb has been dated to the Goguryeo period, an ancient kingdom that existed from 37 BC to AD 668, and is considered one of the most important eras in the history of the Korean peninsula. From the very first stages of the investigation, researchers realized this was no ordinary discovery. Despite spending centuries, perhaps even more than 1,000 years, beneath the ground, many parts of the tomb remained remarkably well preserved. According to the archaeological team, the structure consists of a burial chamber and an entrance passage leading into it. What surprised experts most was the condition of the stone entrance. The tomb's stone gate had remained almost completely intact. The doorway measures approximately 49 inches high and about 24 inches wide. Most remarkably, portions of its original metal sliding door mechanism still survive. Details like this are extremely rare in structures that have endured for such a long period of time. The newly discovered tomb is located not far from the famous Ryonggang Tomb Complex, which is currently recognized as a World Heritage Site. Because of this, the region has long been regarded as one of the most important archaeological centers in North Korea. However, what truly sets this newly discovered tomb apart are the murals found inside. According to experts, after opening the entrance that had remained sealed for centuries, researchers were greeted by ancient paintings that still preserve the artistic touch of craftsmen who lived more than 1,000 years ago. These murals are known as sasindo, famous paintings depicting 4 sacred guardian deities from ancient belief systems. According to historical records, sasindo represents 4 mythical creatures associated with the 4 cardinal directions. Ancient people believed that these divine guardians not only guided the souls of the deceased into the afterlife, but also protected tombs from evil forces and wandering spirits. What makes the discovery especially significant is that although many ancient tombs have previously been uncovered in the Ryonggang region, this is the first time experts have found a tomb featuring sasindo murals in this particular area. That fact alone has made the discovery exceptionally valuable to historians and archaeologists. The murals do far more than showcase the artistic achievements of the Goguryeo era. They also provide scientists with valuable insight into the beliefs, spiritual traditions, and views that ancient people held regarding death and the afterlife. Every brushstroke and every symbol painted on the walls may contain messages that modern researchers are still trying to decipher. Although many mysteries remain unsolved, The discovery at Undok has opened yet another doorway into the spiritual world of the ancient Koguryo civilization. And perhaps hidden within the images of these four guardian deities are stories that have remained untold for more than 1,000 years. After all, as we know, the ancient world was full of mysteries, and when it comes to the past, almost anything seems possible. 6,000-year-old mass grave in France reveals a horrifying secret about violence in the Neolithic age. Did you know that 6,000 years ago, when people were still living in early farming communities, they may have experienced conflicts far more brutal than most of us could imagine? Few people are aware of this, and until recently, neither was I. However, a remarkable archaeological discovery in France has shed light on this dark chapter of human history, revealing a story of violence, warfare, and mysterious rituals among prehistoric people. The story begins during excavations in the city of Bergheim, France. There, archaeologists uncovered an ancient mass grave containing evidence that left researchers astonished. Beneath the layers of soil that had remained undisturbed for thousands of years lay 7 human skeletons, part of an infant's skull, and numerous scattered hand and arm bones. At first glance, the scene looked like something from a horror movie. In reality, however, it represents a valuable archaeological discovery that helps us better understand the brutality that once existed in the distant past. The remains were discovered by archaeologists working in Bergheim, including researcher Fanny Chanal of the Antea Archaeological Institute in Hobsheim. After careful examination, experts determined that the grave contained the remains of 2 adult men, 1 woman, and 4 children. In addition, they found part of a newborn baby's skull within the burial area. What attracted the researchers' attention most was not simply the number of bodies, but the unusual marks found on the skeletons. According to a report published in the archaeological journal Antiquity in December, the individuals buried in the pit most likely died during an attack or an armed conflict. Their bodies were later placed in the mass grave, a location where severed left arms had previously been found. These arms appeared to have been cut off with axes or other sharp weapons. Whose arms were they, and why were they placed in this grave? Archaeologists still do not have a definitive answer. However, they did notice one particularly intriguing detail. Most of the skeletons were largely intact, with their limbs preserved. The exception was one male skeleton whose skull showed severe damage caused by a powerful blow. This individual was also missing his left arm, although researchers have not yet determined whether that arm was among those found in the grave. According to Chanal, the archaeological team cannot yet confirm whether the attackers intentionally targeted left arms. Nevertheless, one theory suggests that the severed limbs may have been taken as trophies after battle. Particularly significant are the hand bones discovered at the bottom of the pit, which indicate that these body parts were not only removed, but may also have been deliberately processed afterward. Radiocarbon dating revealed that the individuals in the grave lived approximately 6,000 years ago during the Neolithic period. This was the era when humans began developing agriculture and forming larger settled communities. Typically, people who died within farming communities during this period were buried in circular pits. The Bergheim discovery, however, provides entirely different evidence. Individuals who died during violent clashes or armed conflicts may also have been buried in this type of grave. Fanny Chanal explained, "Bergheim is the first discovery that allows us to connect burials in circular pits with acts of violence, possibly armed conflict." According to her, the discovery is extremely important, but it also raises many new questions about human societies thousands of years ago. Before this mass grave was uncovered, the purpose of Neolithic circular pits remained one of archaeology's great mysteries. Some scientists believe they were originally used as food storage pits or reserve warehouses and were later repurposed for burials. Another theory suggests they may have served as burial places for high-status individuals, accompanied by people who were killed to follow them into the afterlife. Some experts have even proposed that those buried in such pits may have been slaves sacrificed as offerings to deities worshipped in ancient belief systems. In addition to the human remains, archaeologists discovered several artifacts, including a shell ornament fragment, a stone spear point, a pig jawbone fragment, and 2 hair-stained skeletons. These objects provide additional clues about the daily lives, culture, and rituals of the people who lived during that time. Interestingly, before this extraordinary grave was discovered, Archaeologists had already excavated 60 other circular pits in the Bergheim area. Of those, 13 contained human remains or isolated human bones. That is why it is not an exaggeration to say that the discovery at Bergheim does more than tell the story of a violent event that occurred 6,000 years ago. It also reminds us that human history has never been solely a story of progress and peace. Behind the earliest advances of civilization existed fierce struggles, unsolved mysteries, and stories that remained buried beneath the earth for thousands of years. A 250,000-year-old skull found in a South African cave reveals a story about humanity's ancestors. Did you know that our world is full of mysteries? Some secrets seem as though they have vanished forever, yet a single small bone discovered beneath the earth can completely change the way we view human history. A remarkable archaeological discovery in South Africa has proven exactly that. Researchers announced that they found part of the skull of a young Homo naledi individual within an ancient cave system. Homo naledi was a distant relative of modern humans, a species that once existed in the past but has since become extinct. The discovery was made in the Dinaledi Chamber, located within the Rising Star Cave system in South Africa. This is the same location that stunned the archaeological community in 2015 when the first Homo naledi fossils were discovered there. What makes this find especially significant is that the newly discovered skull was located about 40 feet away from the original Dinaledi Chamber site. The area is far from easy to access. The cave system is incredibly complex, stretching for approximately 1.2 miles and containing numerous narrow, winding passageways. After careful study, experts determined that the skull belonged to a Homo naledi child who was believed to have been only about 4 to 6 years old at the time of death. What astonished scientists even more was the fact that this small individual lived nearly 250,000 years ago. Just imagine that for a moment. A child who lived hundreds of thousands of years ago, long before modern humans appeared as we know them today, is now helping us open an entirely new chapter in the story of human evolution. Isn't that fascinating? Professor Lee Berger, the lead investigator of the project and director of the Center for the Exploration of the Deep Human Journey at Wits University, stated that Homo naledi is one of the most mysterious ancient human relatives ever discovered. According to Berger, this new find not only helps scientists better understand Homo naledi, but also raises major questions. Who was truly the first species to create complex cultures? Who were the earliest beings capable of crafting sophisticated stone tools? And could abilities that we once believed belonged only to modern humans have appeared much earlier than previously thought? Researchers named the skull Leti, a word from Setswana, one of South Africa's 11 official languages, which means the lost one. To reconstruct Leti's face and skull structure, experts painstakingly assembled 28 skull fragments along with 6 teeth. This was an extraordinarily complex task because these remains were only a small part of nearly 2,000 fossil fragments belonging to more than 20 Homo naledi individuals that have been excavated from the Dinaledi cave system since 2013. John Hawkes, a biological anthropologist and lead author of previous research on a male Homo naledi individual nicknamed Neo, who was also discovered in this cave system, noted that the site is one of the richest sources of ancient human fossils in Africa. According to Hawkes, Homo naledi is among the most extensively studied ancient hominin species ever discovered. Every bone fragment recovered helps scientists better understand a unique branch of human evolution that eventually disappeared from history. Yet the story of Leti still contains many mysteries. The remains were found in an extremely difficult-to-reach location, deep within a narrow passage measuring only about 6 inches wide and approximately 31 inches long. The presence of skeletal remains in such a confined space has led researchers to ask many questions about how this individual came to be there. Notably, Leti's skull shows no obvious signs of trauma. As a result, scientists are still unable to determine the exact cause of the child's death. Although we do not yet have all the answers, the discovery of this 250,000-year-old Homo naledi skull in the Dinaledi Chamber of South Africa continues to demonstrate that the story of human evolution is far more complex than we once imagined. It reminds us that deep within those dark caves remain the stories of beings that once existed, once lived, and eventually disappeared. leaving behind traces that help modern humans uncover the story of their own origins. The mysterious skeleton, washed ashore in Wales, sparks debate across Britain. The ocean has always been a place that hides countless secrets humanity has yet to fully uncover. Whenever the waves wash a strange object onto the shore, it inevitably sparks curiosity among those who see it. And sometimes, the appearance of a single small skeleton on a beach is enough to ignite lengthy debates among experts and internet users alike. A perfect example of this is the story of a mysterious skeleton that was recently discovered on a beach in the United Kingdom. The story began on June 16th at Ross-on-Sea Beach in North Wales, United Kingdom. There, a strange creature was found in an advanced state of decomposition. According to reports, most of the soft tissue had disappeared, leaving only the spine and skull relatively intact. The unusual shape of the skeletal remains quickly attracted the attention of local residents, as well as people fascinated by unexplained mysteries. The first photographs of the remains were taken by Ken Shaw, a local resident. According to him, the skeleton measured approximately 18 inches in length. At first, he believed it might be the remains of a member of the dogfish family. However, once the images were shared on social media and local news websites, a wide range of theories began to emerge. Some people believed it was a sea bass that had decomposed after spending a long time in the ocean. Others argued that the elongated shape of the skeleton made it look more like an eel. As more people joined the discussion, the mystery surrounding the creature became even more intriguing. So what did the scientists think? In an effort to find an answer, experts from Bangor University in Wales examined the published photographs. Based on the remaining features of the skeleton, they suggested that the remains most likely belonged to a small eel. However, the experts also acknowledged that they could not make a definitive identification based solely on photographs. The reason was simple. Many critical parts of the skeleton were missing, severely limiting any detailed analysis. But perhaps the most fascinating aspect of the story was not the scientific conclusion. It was the creative theories proposed by internet users. While some people attempted serious analysis, others contributed humorous suggestions that made the discussion even more lively. One commenter claimed that the skeleton looked like a giant spotted dodo bird. Another jokingly suggested that it might be the legendary Welsh dragon, emerging straight from the famous myths and folklore of the region. Meanwhile, one follower who appeared to have greater knowledge of marine life pointed out that the skeleton displayed characteristics commonly found in eel-like species. The person suggested that it could very well be a conger eel, a species commonly found in British waters, and agreed with Bangor University's assessment. To this day, the small eel theory remains the most plausible explanation. Yet because crucial evidence has been lost to time and natural decomposition, the creature's true identity still leaves many unanswered questions. What do you think? If you had been the first person to spot this mysterious skeleton lying on the sands of North Wales, would you believe it was simply an ordinary eel or the remains of some unknown creature that science has yet to discover? Be sure to share your thoughts in the comments below and let everyone know what you think. The male and female skeletons found holding hands for 3,500 years. Did you know that the world of archaeology is full of fascinating discoveries? Some archaeological finds leave scientists amazed because of their historical significance. Others touch people on a much deeper level because of the stories hidden behind human remains that have rested beneath the earth for thousands of years. And sometimes, a single hand clasp is enough to create one of the greatest mysteries in human history. Just imagine this for a moment. What if archaeologists were to open an ancient grave thousands of years old and discover two skeletons still lying side by side, their faces turned toward one another and their hands tightly clasped as if they had never let go? What would you think that meant? Would it be evidence of a love that transcended time? Or could it be the trace of a mysterious ancient ritual? It's difficult to know for sure, isn't it? Yet that very question emerged when Russian scientists conducted an excavation in the village of Stary Tartus, located in the vast Siberian region of Russia. During their investigation of the site, they uncovered a remarkable grave dating back approximately 3,500 years to the Bronze Age. What captured the attention of archaeologists, however, was not simply the age of the burial, but the way the two individuals had been laid to rest. Scientists reported that beneath layers of soil that had remained undisturbed for 3.5 millennia lay the remains of a man and a woman. Astonishingly, they were not buried separately, as was common in many ancient graves. Instead, the two were placed facing one another, their faces turned toward each other, with their hands still locked together. Although time had taken everything else, from their flesh to the personal belongings they may once have owned, the remarkable position of their bodies had remained almost perfectly preserved. This extraordinary scene immediately raised countless questions. Who were they? Were they husband and wife? What led people living 3,500 years ago to bury them in such an unusual way? As archaeologists continued their research, they uncovered even more intriguing details. In addition to this pair, they found several other graves in the area where children had been buried alongside adults. This suggests that the ancient community that once lived there practiced burial customs that we still do not fully understand today. To solve the mystery, scientists have been conducting DNA studies on the skeletal remains. They hope that genetic analysis will help determine the true relationships between the individuals buried together. One theory that has attracted considerable attention proposes that these burials may provide evidence of the early development of the nuclear family, a household consisting of parents and children, a social structure that remains common throughout much of the world today. However, not everyone agrees with that interpretation. Some researchers have proposed a far more controversial theory. According to their hypothesis, after the husband died, the wife may have been sacrificed or intentionally killed so that she could be buried alongside him as part of an ancient funerary custom. Of course, this remains only a theory, but if it were true, that hand clasp, which appears so loving and tender at first glance, might conceal a very different story. Professor Vyacheslav Molodin, research director of the Russian Institute of Archaeology and Ethnography, explained that when an adult and a child are found in the same grave, the relationship is often easier to interpret, usually involving family ties such as parent and child or other close relatives. However, when two adults are buried together in such a distinctive manner, the number of possible explanations becomes much greater. To this day, the true secret of the man and woman who lay beneath the soil of Siberia for 3,500 years remains unsolved. Was it the story of an eternal love preserved across millennia? Or was it evidence of an ancient ritual that modern people can scarcely imagine? Perhaps only future DNA analyses will bring us closer to the truth that has been sleeping beneath the frozen ground of Siberia for thousands of years. Until then, we'll simply have to wait and see. 7,200-year-old teenage girl's skeleton reveals a mysterious human lineage never before known. Did you know that for centuries, the Indonesian island of Sulawesi quietly guarded a secret beneath its soil? There were no massive pyramids, no ruined palaces, and no famous temples drawing crowds of tourists. Yet deep inside an ancient cave hidden among the island's limestone mountains lay a story that could change what we know about human history. That story began in 2015 when archaeologists conducted excavations at Liang Paningay Cave on the island of Sulawesi, Indonesia. At first, they simply hoped to uncover additional traces of prehistoric people who had once lived in the region. But as they dug deeper through the ancient layers of earth, they realized they were approaching something extraordinary. Resting beneath the ground for more than 7 millennia were the remains of a young girl. At the time of her death, she was only about 17 to 18 years old. No one knows her name, what her life was like, or what caused her to leave this world. But what no one expected was that her skeleton would become the key to unlocking a secret humanity had never known before. When the remains were discovered, scientists recognized them as the most complete and best-preserved skeleton ever found associated with the Toa-Lian culture, a mysterious hunter-gatherer society that existed only in the southwestern region of Sulawesi. Over thousands of years, the Toa-Lians had almost completely vanished from history, leaving behind very few clues about their origins or their ultimate fate. What makes the Toa-Lians especially fascinating is their remarkably distinctive stone tool technology. They crafted small, finely made arrowheads and a variety of unique tools that archaeologists have never found anywhere else on Sulawesi or even elsewhere in Indonesia. As a result, the Toa-Lian culture has long remained one of Southeast Asia's greatest archaeological mysteries. But the real secret began to emerge when scientists decided to analyze the young girl's DNA. This was no easy task. As you probably know, Indonesia's hot and humid tropical climate is one of the greatest enemies of ancient DNA. After thousands of years, genetic material is usually almost completely destroyed. Nevertheless, the research team decided to take a chance by collecting a sample from the petrous bone at the base of the skull, one of the densest bones in the human body. That decision proved to be the right one. After months of research, the results that appeared before the scientists left them stunned. The DNA of the 7,200-year-old girl did not match that of any previously studied ancient human population. According to Professor Adam Brum of the Center for Human Evolution Research at Griffith University, this was the first ancient human DNA ever recovered from Wallacea, the chain of islands located between Asia and Australia. The region includes Indonesian islands such as Sulawesi, Lombok, and Flores, and is believed to have served as a migration route for the first modern humans who traveled to the Australian continent more than 50,000 years ago. As researchers examined the girl's genome in greater detail, they discovered that she was descended from some of the earliest modern human groups to reach Wallacea approximately 50,000 years ago. That alone would have been an astonishing discovery. But the biggest surprise was yet to come. Hidden within the young girl's DNA were genetic traces of the Denisovans, a mysterious extinct human species that disappeared long ago. Until now, Denisovan fossils had been found primarily in Siberia and Tibet. Therefore, discovering evidence of Denisovan ancestry on an island in Indonesia came as a major surprise to scientists and raised a host of new questions about ancient migrations that we had never previously understood. Today, the true fate of the Toalian people remains a major mystery. Did they gradually merge with other populations? Did they migrate elsewhere? Or did they disappear completely from history? No one can say for certain. The remains of this young girl have become one of the most fascinating archaeological puzzles in the world. And according to Professor Adam Brum, the greatest hope now is to discover additional ancient DNA samples from other Toalian individuals. Such findings could help researchers piece together the missing fragments of the story and finally reveal the history of a human lineage that once existed but was nearly forgotten by history for tens of thousands of years. More than 10,000-year-old mastodon bones discovered. Recently in the state of Michigan, two ordinary men, not archaeologists and not equipped with specialized excavation equipment, made an extraordinary discovery using nothing more than shovels and determination. By pure chance, they unearthed 42 massive fossilized bones belonging to an ancient mastodon that lived between 10,000 and 14,000 years ago. What makes the discovery even more remarkable is that it did not occur in some remote wilderness. Instead, it was found in the backyard of Eric Witzke, a man who never imagined that beneath the land where he lived rested the remains of a prehistoric creature. Together with his neighbor, Daniel Lapointe, he spent 4 straight days digging by hand, carefully uncovering one valuable fossil after another. Among the finds were leg bones, shoulder bones, hip bones, fragments of vertebrae, and most impressively, 2 enormous curved tusks. All of the remains belonged to a male mastodon estimated to have been about 37 years old when it roamed this region near the end of the Ice Age. When experts from the University of Michigan's Museum of Paleontology became involved, they noticed cut and slicing marks preserved on the surface of several bones. These marks suggest that the animal may have been killed by ancient humans for food and butchered at the site before its remains were buried beneath cold soil for thousands of years. Speaking to the media, Dr. Daniel Fisher, director of the museum, emphasized, "The scientific value of discoveries like this does not lie in how spectacular the skeleton appears, but in the information and new insights it provides. Indeed, every bone serves as another piece of the puzzle, helping us better understand prehistoric life, ancient environments, and the relationship between humans and animals thousands of years ago." With more than 330 documented mastodon fossil discoveries recorded in Michigan in the past year alone, the state is gradually becoming an enormous archaeological and paleontological treasure trove that has yet to be fully explored. So what exactly was a mastodon? For those who may not know, mastodons were close relatives of modern elephants and belonged to an extinct group of elephant-like mammals. Although they resembled mammoths in appearance, their diets were quite different. Mastodons primarily lived in forests, feeding on pine cones, leaves, and other vegetation. They used their long trunks and large teeth to strip branches and browse on plants. Mammoths, by contrast, were primarily grazing animals that lived on the cold grasslands of the Ice Age. As you can see, sometimes the most ordinary coincidences can provide science with priceless fossil collections. Discoveries like this also remind us that Earth's distant past is not hidden in some faraway place. In many cases, it lies right beneath our feet, simply waiting to be uncovered and tell its story. The 1,750-year-old city sleeping beneath a Chinese lake. Located in Yunnan province in southwestern China, Fuxian Lake has long been known as one of the country's most unique freshwater lakes. The lake covers an area of about 82 square miles and stretches across Chengjiang, Jiangchuan, and Huaning counties. Not only is it the third largest lake in Yunnan province, but it is also the deepest lake in the region. With a maximum depth of around 509 feet, it is also the second deepest freshwater lake in all of China. From the surface, Fuxian Lake appears peaceful and beautiful, with deep blue water surrounded by mountain landscapes. But beneath its calm surface lies a secret that has fascinated local people for generations. Long before archaeologists ever arrived, residents living around the lake passed down a strange story. They claimed that on clear days, when the light and water conditions were just right, faint images of ancient structures, like an entire submerged city, could be seen deep beneath the lake. At first, this sounds more like a folk legend than reality. But think about it. If hundreds of people across generations tell the same story, could there be some truth behind it? Driven by this curiosity, Chinese archaeologists launched a large-scale investigation. With the help of modern equipment and underwater survey vehicles, they began exploring what lay hidden beneath the depths of Fuxian Lake. Then, in 2001, something completely unexpected happened. The research team discovered a series of stone structures on the lakebed. These were not natural rock formations, but clearly showed signs of human construction. The ancient architectural complex covered an area of approximately 0.9 to 1.0 square miles, large enough to leave archaeologists stunned. Even more astonishing, within this submerged complex, they found a pyramid-like structure rising over 66 feet tall. The existence of such massive construction, hundreds of feet underwater, immediately sparked countless theories. Many even referred to the discovery as the Atlantis of the East. To determine the age of the site, scientists used radiocarbon dating on shells attached to the stone structures. The results revealed that the underwater city is approximately 1,750 years old, meaning it was submerged during the Han Dynasty, one of the most important periods in Chinese history. Many experts believe this may be the remains of the ancient Dian Kingdom, a civilization that once existed in the Yunnan region. Historical records suggest that the Dian people developed a complex culture but disappeared after 86 BC. If this theory is correct, then the submerged city beneath Fuxian Lake could represent one of the most valuable archaeological links to this lost civilization. But one major question remains. If this truly was once a thriving ancient city, why is it now underwater? Some researchers suggest that a massive earthquake in the past may have caused the land to collapse and become submerged. While this explanation sounds plausible, there is still no definitive evidence to confirm it. Other theories have also been proposed, but none can fully explain all the mysteries surrounding the site. More than 2 decades after its discovery, the ancient city beneath Fuxian Lake remains one of Asia's most intriguing archaeological puzzles. Beneath its deep waters may still lie countless undiscovered structures, lost artifacts, and perhaps even the key to understanding the fate of a once flourishing civilization that vanished without a trace. What do you think? If you were standing beside a calm lake, knowing that an entire ancient city lies silently beneath it, would you believe we have truly uncovered all the secrets of history? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below. The ancient city of Baalbek and its massive megaliths. In what is now modern-day Lebanon, nestled at the foot of a majestic mountain range, lies an ancient architectural complex that has astonished the entire world. The ancient city of Baalbek, situated at an elevation of over 3,770 feet above sea level, Baalbek is not merely an archaeological site. It is a historical puzzle that has never been fully solved. The most remarkable feature of this complex is the Temple of Jupiter, one of the greatest structures ever built during the Roman Empire. The temple is not only massive in scale, but it also leaves people in awe due to its foundation, which rests on 3 monolithic stone blocks, each weighing up to 800 tons, equivalent to the weight of more than 130 adult elephants. But the mystery does not end there. About 1 mile from the temple, in an ancient quarry, archaeologists discovered an unfinished megalith known as the Stone of the Pregnant Woman. Measuring approximately 70.5 feet in length, 19.7 feet in width, and at least 18 feet in height, it is estimated to weigh around 1,650 tons, making it the largest stone ever quarried by humans in recorded history. This figure exceeds all known engineering capabilities of the ancient world, and even challenges modern engineering limits today. According to modern calculations, lifting this massive block off the ground would require at least 25 heavy-duty cranes working together. And that would only be the first step. Transporting it even a few hundred yards across rough terrain would be almost unimaginable. Even if human labor were used instead, it would theoretically require around 60,000 workers at the same time, a completely unrealistic scenario given the limited working space around the stone. So the biggest question remains: how did ancient people accomplish this? What technology did they possess? Or is this the remnant of a lost civilization whose capabilities far exceeded our current understanding of human history? Today, the Stone of the Pregnant Woman still lies where it was left, tilted at roughly a 30-degree angle, with its lower end buried deep into the ground as if construction was abruptly abandoned mid-process. Did ancient builders simply miscalculate their ability to move it? Or did they once possess a method of engineering that modern humanity has yet to understand? If we say that Baalbek is not just an ancient monument, but a challenge thrown across time itself, then that would not be an exaggeration at all. The 2,000-year-old road hidden beneath a Greek city. Do you believe that beneath busy streets, modern buildings, and the constant flow of people, history can sometimes still lie quietly asleep, waiting to be awakened? That secrets buried for thousands of years may remain completely unknown to us? And what's truly fascinating is that sometimes modern construction projects accidentally become gateways that lead us back into the distant past. If you've never thought about that before, then let's take a look at the city of Thessaloniki, the second largest city in Greece. It is one of the oldest urban centers in Europe, a place that has witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations over thousands of years. Beneath this bustling modern city, a remarkably well-preserved piece of the past is still hidden underground. The story began in 2006 when a tunnel construction project was launched. At first, it was simply a transportation project designed to serve the needs of the city's residents. However, as workers dug deeper into the ground, they began to notice unusual signs. Layers of ancient stone kept appearing, forcing archaeologists to step in and investigate more carefully. And what they discovered afterward immediately captured the attention of the archaeological world. Hidden beneath the city's layers of soil and stone was a well-preserved ancient road, about 230 feet long. According to experts, this road was built by the Romans roughly 2,000 years ago. Despite 2 millennia of history and countless natural and human changes, large portions of its surface still preserve clear traces of the ancient world. But what makes this discovery truly remarkable is not only its age. Upon closer examination of the massive paving stones, archaeologists found ancient engravings still visible on their surfaces. Some stones feature markings resembling children's games that were played thousands of years ago. It is easy to imagine that 2,000 years ago, Roman children may have sat on these very stones, laughing and playing just as children do today. In addition, other stones bear carvings of horse-drawn chariots. These images feel like fragments of a long-lost world, offering researchers a rare glimpse into the everyday life of ancient inhabitants. And the discoveries did not stop there. During the excavation, archaeologists also uncovered additional artifacts, including fragments of tools, ancient oil lamps, and stone column bases that once belonged to buildings that no longer exist. Each object adds another piece to the historical puzzle buried beneath Thessaloniki. However, the biggest surprise was still deeper below the Roman road. According to archaeologist Viki Tzanakouli, who participated directly in the project, the 2,000-year-old road is actually the second historical layer. Beneath it, researchers discovered traces of an even older road. This earlier road is believed to have been built by the ancient Greeks around 500 years before the Romans arrived in the region. In other words, beneath the archaeologists' feet lie 2 overlapping layers of history, separated by half a millennium. One road built on top of another, like a massive historical book in which each layer of earth preserves a different chapter of the past. This discovery quickly attracted public attention. Since June 25th of last year, the excavation site has been open to the public, allowing residents and tourists to witness firsthand what has just been uncovered. It is a rare opportunity to see a piece of history lying directly beneath the modern city they walk through every day. Of course, such an important archaeological discovery also created significant challenges for the tunnel construction project, which had to be suspended for several years to allow for research and preservation work. But for archaeologists, the delay is entirely justified, because not every day do we get the chance to open a doorway into a world that existed thousands of years ago. And perhaps the most fascinating part of this discovery is the reminder that history never truly disappears. It is still there, right beneath our feet, quietly waiting to be uncovered. Who knows? Beneath the modern cities we live in today, there may still be ancient roads, forgotten structures, and untold stories lying silently underground, waiting for future generations to find them. After all, the world is full of mysteries, and almost anything is possible, isn't it? The 2,000-year-old mummies preserved with skin and flesh in northern European peat bogs. When we think of mummies, most of us immediately imagine the pharaohs of ancient Egypt, wrapped in linen and placed inside massive tombs in the desert. But in a completely different part of the world, in the cold peat bogs of northern Europe, archaeologists have discovered something even more extraordinary. What makes these remains so disturbing is that they were not placed in coffins and were not preserved using any advanced embalming techniques. Yet after more than 2,000 years, skin, flesh, hair, and even parts of internal organs remain astonishingly intact. Just imagine this. You are digging peat in a remote swamp, and suddenly a human face emerges from the dark mud, its skin still preserved as if the person had died only days ago. Would you be able to stay calm and keep looking? Probably not, right? And that is exactly the experience many people in Northern Europe have had over the past 2 centuries. Across the peat bogs of the region, especially in Denmark, hundreds of ancient bodies have been discovered. Denmark is now considered the country with the highest concentration of bog bodies in the world. These remains are around 2,000 years old, yet their level of preservation continues to astonish scientists. Normally, after death, the human body decomposes rapidly. However, the bog environment of Northern Europe acts like a massive natural time capsule. According to archaeologists, the peat contains natural acids produced by decaying plants and moss. Combined with consistently low temperatures and an oxygen-poor environment, these conditions slow or completely halt normal decomposition, preserving bodies almost perfectly for millennia. But what fascinates researchers even more is not how these bodies were preserved, it is the question of how they died. Many archaeologists believe most bog bodies date back to the Iron Age. The most widely accepted theory is that they were victims of ancient ritual sacrifices. After being killed, the bodies were carefully placed into the bog as offerings to the gods worshipped by ancient communities. However, not everyone agrees with this interpretation. Some researchers suggest that among the victims were criminals, immigrants, or individuals considered threats to their communities. They may have been captured, executed, and then thrown into the bog as a form of punishment. As modern science began to examine these remains more closely, even darker details emerged. Forensic analyses revealed that many of these individuals did not die natural deaths. Some were stabbed, some were hanged, others were strangled, suffocated, or even beheaded. This suggests that many victims endured extremely violent deaths before being placed in the bog. Most of the famous bog bodies were discovered between 1800 and 1960, a period when people in Denmark commonly harvested peat for fuel. Ironically, it was these peat harvesters who first uncovered the ancient bodies hidden beneath the dark layers of mud for thousands of years. One of the most famous bog bodies is known as the Haraldskær woman. Her body was discovered in 1835 in southeastern Jutland, Denmark, and is now preserved at the Vejle Museum. When she was found, she was completely naked, lying in the peat bog beside her clothing. At first, many scholars believed she was Queen Gunhild of Norway, who was said to have been drowned by Danish soldiers on the king's orders. However, later radiocarbon dating disproved this theory. The results showed that the body was approximately 2,200 years old, far older than the historical period of that queen. In 2000, forensic experts conducted a more detailed examination. They discovered that her stomach still contained traces of raspberries and millet, her last meal before death. A faint mark was also found on her neck, suggesting she may have been strangled with a rope. What is particularly notable is that during that period, cremation was the most common burial practice in the region, yet her body was carefully placed into the bog. This detail has led many researchers to believe that she was not the victim of an ordinary murder, but possibly someone chosen for a mysterious and ritualistic sacrifice. To this day, every bog body recovered from Northern Europe feels like a message sent from the past. These remains tell us not only about the lives of people who died over 2,000 years ago, but also remind us that many secrets of the ancient world are still hidden beneath cold, dark layers of peat, waiting to be revealed. And when you think about it, it really is quite terrifying, isn't it? The 7,500-year-old giant Stonehenge, Europe's most mysterious megalithic site that challenges human understanding. When people think of the world's most famous ancient stone structures, most immediately picture Stonehenge in England. The massive standing stones rising from the plain have puzzled scientists for centuries. But what if there is an even larger, older, and possibly more mysterious megalithic complex, one that remained buried and almost completely unknown for thousands of years? To understand it, we need to go back to 2018. In a large field in southwestern Spain, workers were preparing land for avocado cultivation when they unexpectedly uncovered unusually large stones scattered in high concentration. At first, they assumed these were isolated remnants, but as surveys continued, a far more astonishing picture began to emerge. Before long, they realized they were standing above a massive megalithic complex stretching across roughly 1,500 acres, about 600 hectares. The scale was so vast that it covered an entire hilly landscape. Thousands of stone blocks were discovered across the area, many of which were still standing upright after thousands of years. Once the discovery was announced, archaeologists stepped in and named the site La Torre la Llanera. What makes this location so extraordinary is the way the stones are arranged. Scientists have identified solitary standing stones resembling enormous markers, stone circles formed from multiple blocks, long straight alignments across the ground, boundary walls, earthen mounds, and even structures believed to be ancient tombs. Together, they form such a complex system that archaeologists have needed years just to document and begin analyzing it. Many experts have described the site as a vastly expanded version of Stonehenge. To put this into perspective, England's Stonehenge is about 4,500 years old and has long been considered one of the most important megalithic monuments in the world. Researchers believe it may have been used for religious rituals and possibly astronomical observations. However, in terms of scale, Stonehenge appears almost small compared to La Torre la Llanera. After years of excavation and analysis, scientists reached a conclusion that shocked the academic world. The oldest stones at the site are estimated to have been erected around 7,500 years ago. This means the complex predates Stonehenge by several millennia. Among the thousands of stones discovered, about 520 are standalone megaliths, most belonging to the earliest phase of construction. In addition, there are structures believed to be covered burial sites. Some stones appear to form parts of tomb chambers, and archaeologists hope that future excavations may uncover human remains within these areas. Even more intriguing, many of the stones appear to be aligned with specific astronomical phenomena. This detail has led researchers to suggest that the site may have served as a ritual center or even a primitive astronomical observatory used by Neolithic communities. But the biggest question remains: who built this enormous complex? Current theories suggest that the construction of megalithic sites spread across Europe during the Neolithic period. The earliest builders may have been migrating communities from the Near East. As they expanded across regions, they encountered and intermingled with local hunter-gatherer groups. Over thousands of years, this cultural blending helped shape the ancestors of many modern European populations. Still, many mysteries about La Torre la Llanera remain unsolved. Why did ancient people transport and erect thousands of massive stones? What rituals took place there? And could even more evidence still lie buried beneath layers of earth, waiting to be uncovered and potentially rewriting European history? To this day, in the vast hills of Spain, this 7,500-year-old megalithic complex continues to stand in silence, challenging everything we think we know about an ancient civilization that existed at the dawn of human history. The plane that vanished for 17 years and reappeared in the desert. Aviation history is filled with mysterious disappearances. Some aircraft vanish over the ocean and are never seen again. Some crews depart on what seem like routine missions, only to become part of stories that remain debated for decades. But few cases are as strange as the story of the aircraft known as Lady Be Good, a U.S. Air Force bomber that disappeared without a trace during World War II, only to reappear 17 years later. And when it was finally found, the real mystery had only just begun. It all began on April 4, 1943. The B-24D bomber named Lady Be Good took off on a bombing mission over Italy. It was the first combat mission for both the aircraft and its 9-man crew. Like many wartime operations, it was expected that they would complete their mission and return safely to their base in Libya, North Africa. But that never happened. After the bombing run, every other aircraft in the formation returned to base. Only Lady Be Good never came back. There were no distress signals, no emergency communications, and no indication of what had gone wrong. Faced with its disappearance, the U.S. military immediately launched a search operation. Based on the information available at the time, they believed the aircraft had likely crashed into the Mediterranean Sea. Naval searches were carried out, but no wreckage was found, and no trace of the crew ever appeared. As time passed, the case was eventually filed away as an unsolved mystery. Then, 15 years later, in 1958, something unexpected happened. While conducting an oil exploration survey over Libya, a team of researchers took aerial photographs. When they reviewed the images, they noticed something unusual in the vast desert below. After heading to the site, they were shocked to discover it was the wreckage of Lady Be Good, missing since 1943. Imagine that. A plane believed to have crashed into the sea was found hundreds of miles inland in the Libyan desert. This meant that for 15 years, search efforts had been focused in entirely the wrong place. Although heavily damaged from the crash, the aircraft was remarkably well preserved thanks to the desert's hot, dry climate. Many parts were still largely intact. Even more astonishing, the radio and several onboard instruments were still functional after decades buried in the sand. But the most disturbing discovery was that there were no signs of the crew near the wreckage. Where had they gone? That question continued to haunt investigators. In 1959, local authorities launched a large-scale search operation across the desert that lasted for weeks. However, all efforts failed, and the search was eventually called off with no answers. It seemed the mystery would remain buried forever beneath the endless dunes. Then, 1 year later, a breakthrough finally came. In 1960, 17 years after Lady Be Good vanished, search teams finally discovered the remains of the crew. 8 of the 9 men were found scattered across the desert. Alongside them were personal belongings and the flight log of co-pilot Robert Toner, which revealed the heartbreaking truth about their final days. After the aircraft malfunctioned, all 9 crew members had bailed out by parachute. Amazingly, 8 of them survived the landing. Not knowing their exact location, they began walking across the harsh desert in search of rescue. Under scorching heat and severe dehydration, they pressed on. According to recovered records, they walked approximately 85 miles. In the end, 5 of them collapsed from exhaustion. The remaining 3 continued for a while longer before suffering the same fate. It remains one of the most tragic survival stories in military aviation history. But even after the fate of most of the crew was revealed, the case was still not fully solved. Of the 9 crew members, only 8 sets of remains were ever found. Gunner Vernon L. Moore seemed to have vanished into the desert without leaving a single trace. No one knows which direction he went. No one knows what happened to him in his final hours. To this day, in the vast desert of Libya, the mystery of Vernon L. Moore remains unsolved. And that is why Lady Be Good is remembered not only as a tragic aviation accident, but also as one of the strangest disappearance cases in history. As you can see, from ancient skeletons revealing the existence of previously unknown human lineages, to mummies preserved almost perfectly for more than 2 millennia, to lost cities beneath lakes, and massive megalithic structures that challenge everything we think we know about the ancient world, each discovery reminds us that history still contains countless gaps waiting to be filled. Perhaps even now, somewhere beneath forests, deserts, oceans, or even modern cities, Secrets are still lying quietly, waiting for humanity to uncover them. And it is very possible that the next groundbreaking archaeological discovery could completely change everything we believe about the past. So tell me, out of all the mysteries we've explored today, which story impressed you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to Ancient History so you won't miss any more incredible discoveries. For now, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.